Alright, what's going on, guys? I got another manga timeline for ya, and this time we're gonna do JoJo Part 8, JoJolion. Now I'm gonna break up this timeline into 3 separate videos, and then at the very end, we'll combine it into one video for you guys, so you can binge watch it at your leisure. Now a little bit of background knowledge about JoJolion. This is the second part within the Steel Ball timeline, and it takes place in a parallel world from the first 6 parts. It's written and illustrated by Hirohiko Araki, and it features a boy, Josuke Higashikata, as he attempts to find out who he really is. It should be noted that according to the wiki page, JoJolion, released in the monthly Ultra Jump from 2011 to 2021 for a total of 10 years and 3 months, was the longest part of the JoJo series yet, with 110 chapters, 27 volumes, and over 4,600 pages. Now, while this part of JoJo just recently finished, it is not the last part of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure universe. There's another title coming out called JoJolion, and it will be JoJo Part 9. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here. Let's get invested in Morio Japan and JoJo Part 8, JoJolion. A girl hides from a stalker. She then finds a mysterious man trapped within the dirt. We learn that Morio has experienced a giant earthquake. As a result, protuberances have risen from the ground. They became known as walleyes. The walleyes block the roads, waterways, electricity, and gas. The mysterious man reaches for help, but the girl worries that he might be contagious with something. She takes notice of a wound surrounding a star-shaped birthmark. Yasuho, the girl, calls for help. The man can't recall his own name. The man starts to sink, forcing Yasuho to pull him out. The man is completely naked. Yasuho notices that the star is transparent. A man Yasuho recognizes, Joshu, then shows up. Joshu gets jealous, thinking the man is here to steal Yasuho from him. By the way, Yasuho doesn't even like Joshu. Joshu shoves Yasuho out of the way and looks to bash the naked man with a rock. The man tries to defend himself, but Joshu puts him into an arm lock. A bubble then floats from the man and lands on Joshu. Joshu's eyes disappear, causing him to drop the rock and panic. The man punches Joshu in the gut as his vision finally returns. And with that, guys, this is a story about breaking a curse. Yasuho then speculates on the origins of the curse. She also points out the absurd fact that the naked man has 4 balls. In other words, 4 testicles. The man still doesn't know who he is. He does recognize Yasuho, who's walking down the hospital hallway. The man startles Yasuho when she walks in. Yasuho is here to see Joshu, and she makes it clear that they are not dating. Yasuho then sees the man's 4 balls once more, making her exceptionally nervous. The man eats some filled mochis, making a mess in the process. Yasuho then asks if it's true that he lost his memory. The man remembers nothing about himself. The only person he remembers is Yasuho. Yasuho recognizes his sailor outfit and is familiar with the designer and the salesman. They need to exit the hospital prematurely, so the man uses a bubble to drain the water from a nearby security guard who's keeping watch over the room. As she drinks some water, the two make their escape. Joshu sees Yasuho with the man and becomes angry. He then passes out as we see a similar bite mark on his body. The hat salesman confirms that the man bought the hat 3 days ago. Yasuho inquires about the sale, and the salesman reveals that the man is Yoshikage Kira. They also pick up an address and head on their way out. Now when Yasuho looks at the man, she feels like Kira is not his correct name. To her, he looks more like her dog, who is named Josuke. Yasuho finds a spare key for the apartment, so they let themselves in. The sailor clothing inside matches Josuke's dimensions to a T. The two then hear a noise from one of the other rooms, revealing someone else is inside the apartment with them. Josuke and Yasuho inspect the room. Yasuho notes that they can hear the echoes from the footsteps upstairs. Yasuho finds a lot of canned peas, and proof that Kira truly lived here. Josuke enters the bathroom, finding a naked woman in the bathtub. Josuke tells Yasuho about her, so she goes in to check in on her. After talking with Josuke outside the door, Yasuho re-enters and asks the girl if Josuke's her boyfriend. The naked girl has a strange mark on her feet. She then begs for help. Josuke attempts to put on some slippers, but gets poked by the thumbtacks inside. He then finds a jar of fingernail clippings. Yasuho then finds a photo album. Unfortunately, there's pictures of girls getting tied up and gagged inside. She becomes freaked out by this and runs out on Josuke. Josuke searches for answers, but the naked girl thought he came here to save her. A thud from the apartment upstairs causes him to gouge his hands in glass.
The naked girl says they need to escape. Josuke's cut hand then develops a signal that's already on the body of the naked lady. In fact, it's on her feet and hands. The cut develops on his left foot, but the woman says there's still time to escape. Outside, Yasuo declines an invitation to go to a dessert shop with some friends. Yasuo thinks of Josuke, contemplating on whether or not he would do the things she saw in the photos. Josuke reaches for the towel, but there's needles hidden within. The girl states that if the people upstairs stand above you, it's over. The girl goes back in the bath, but she wants to escape. The girl then begins to drown, seemingly against her will. Josuke notices that her body feels heavy. Josuke's limbs affected by the mark start moving on their own. Same goes for the girl's limbs. She gets out of the water and claims she was on a trip to Morio and got kidnapped. Josuke was here previously and escaped. Josuke then cuts himself on the stopper's chain for the bathtub. The girl is compelled to cut out her own tongue, but Josuke wrestles the blade from her. The unknown assailant attempts to hurt Josuke, but the boy reveals his stand, soft and wet. When his soap bubble breaks, he can take something from an object. In this case, he took the sound from the wall. Josuke breaks a nearby wall and uses the footsteps to avoid being caught directly underneath the stand user. Josuke determines that the doorway is too dangerous to exit from, so he instead uses the veranda. Josuke jumps through the glass door, precariously avoiding all the little shards. A garden snake begins attacking him as he notices a bite mark on the back of his foot. The man upstairs still can't locate Josuke. To avoid receiving his force symbol, Josuke has to keep his position concealed. The man uses a snake to peer into the apartment. Josuke has trouble breathing because of the poison. Josuke then notices that the hacksaw says, "Why not cut it off?" Josuke goes back inside, remembering a person from his past, but he still can't recall whom this man is. The man upstairs calls their phone, hoping they'll answer so he can locate their position. Josuke's right foot develops the mark, allowing the assailant to control his entire body. The assailant puts the hacksaw in Josuke's mouth, with Yasuo returning to check in on him. Josuke urges Yasuo to run, since the guy upstairs is attacking him. Just then, Yasuo's right hand receives the mark. Josuke releases his bubble to take the friction from the floor upstairs, causing the assailant to slip. The assailant slides Josuke to the snakes. Josuke uses his bubble to steal the assailant's eyesight. However, he leaves just a little bit of light in the eyes, causing the assailant to chase the light over the balcony and fall over. Josuke catches the assailant with his stand. Josuke then finds the snake antitoxin inside the man's coat. The man demands to see Josuke's hands. They don't match up with the models of Kira's hands. Josuke gets violent, thinking the man is Kira. "I am not Yoshikage Kira." Josuke looks at the picture of Kira, which looks strikingly like himself. The assailant's name is Ojiro, and he has a grudge against Kira. Ojiro explains that Kira is a ship doctor. Kira mocked Ojiro's surfing ability, precipitating a grudge between the two. Kira went on to say that Ojiro was pretending to be a man. He then enticed him to eat his own fingers to prove that he was a man. Yasuo and Josuke inspect the photo with Kira in it. Josuke proceeds to knock out Ojiro, and then him and Yasuo return to the spring. Josuke removes the water, revealing a corpse underneath. The investigators that come by later reveal that the body belongs to Yoshikage Kira, and he died 3 days ago. Interestingly enough, Kira's autopsy reveals that he has no testicles, and in fact, there's no cuts or any removal whatsoever. They just don't exist. After the calamity of events, Joshu's father and the Higashikata family welcome Josuke in with open arms. His new name is Josuke Higashikata. Norisuke, the father, chit-chats with Josuke and Yasuo in the car as he drives them to the family estate. Norisuke then reveals that his great-grandfather took second place in the Steel Ball Run, and with the money, the man started a successful fruit company that is very profitable today. Yasuo recalls that Kira has no records of a family. Joshu makes fun of Josuke for getting his name from a dog. We are then introduced to the various members of the Higashikata family. Hato, the first daughter, Daya, the second daughter, Mitsuba, the daughter-in-law, her son, Sarugi, and the maid, Kyo, all introduce themselves. They get ready for a family picture. Yasuo doesn't want to be in the picture, but Josuke grabs her hand and brings her in. This makes Joshu very angry. Because Jobin isn't there, the eldest son, the father abandons the idea of the family photo. Norisuke gives Joshu's room to Josuke and tells his son he's staying in the room above the garage. Norisuke then lays down the law with Josuke, claiming that whatever he says, goes. Norisuke tells Josuke to watch over Daya, who's visually impaired. Daya hugs Josuke, somewhat irking Yasuho. Yasuho then takes her leave. Norisuke instructs Josuke not to go to the set of stairs that lead to a mysterious room. Norisuke's messengers warn Yasuho not to tempt Joshu, and to never see Josuke again. Obviously, she's very befuddled by this. Josuke noticed a marking on the railing for the staircase. Daya knows of all the nooks and crannies in the estate, and doesn't need Josuke's help. While pouring some tea, Daya's stand comes out, and a piece of her leg is destroyed in a mysterious fashion, shocking Josuke. Josuke wonders if someone else is in the room. As he holds Daya, Josuke is reminded that the symbol on Kira and the handrail are exactly the same. Suddenly, Daya's wounds are gone. Josuke's memory of the storage symbol is then extracted from him via a chess piece. Daya places the piece on a board, next to other pieces with bubbles around them too. Daya explains that she has a stand called California King Bed. When she was 2 or 3, she fell into the faults. Her vision, subsequently, got worse, but she received a stand in return. Because Josuke broke a fair rule, i.e. he lied to her, he lost a memory. Daya claims that happiness is to share memories with someone, and with all these memories, she has lots of happiness. If Daya steps into Josuke's shadow, the memory will return. Josuke stares her down, realizing she's more dangerous than she appears. Yasuho returns home, finding her mother in a drunken sleep. Yasuho receives a letter concerning the DNA results of Josuke and Kira. The test reveals that they are the same person, with over a 95% accuracy. Yasuho gets pissed, but then notices a strange mark on Kira's wrist from the photograph. She recalls the mark from the hand railing at Joshu's house. All this information is very perplexing. Daya asks Josuke to accompany her while she changes. He uses soft and wet to steal the sound from the light switch. With the light off, Josuke positions himself for Daya to step into his shadow. Daya determines that his movements are unnatural, figuring out his plans before they come to fruition. She then demands to see if the light switch is on or off. Josuke becomes frantic, lunching for Daya's cell phone to call Yasuho. As he dials, his memories of her are extracted. Yasuho receives a call, but doesn't recognize who it is since it's Daya's phone. Because Josuke deceived Daya, he lost another valuable memory, that of Yasuho. Daya cozies up to Josuke. With Yasuho's memory gone, Daya takes advantage of Josuke's innocence by seductively positioning herself on the bed. Norisuke sees the two, becoming silently enraged with Josuke. He vows to make Josuke pay for this in the future. Daya continues her seduction, with Josuke admitting that he loves her. The bubble pops, causing Daya to panic, thinking that the lights went out again. Turns out the pop was by coincidence and not planned by Josuke. Daya wants Josuke to love her, and she'll continue stealing memories until this happens. Josuke jumps onto Daya's bike to go shopping. Yasuho waves at him from behind the gate, but he doesn't respond. Yasuho hides behind a wall, wondering what's happening to Josuke. Josuke extracts his voice with a bubble and hangs on a nearby tree branch. Daya notices that he isn't holding her from behind. This deception results in another memory loss. This time, the memory of his soft and wet stand. Daya hears her cell phone coming from the house, and Josuke admits that he hid it. Daya smashes the soft and wet chess piece. Thinking that Yasuho is contacting him through her cell phone, she demands that he retrieve her cell phone. Josuke goes to the fridge where he hid it. Daya grabs the cell phone, answers, and hears Yasuho's voice on the other end. Pissed that he tried to contact her earlier, she looks to smash the two memories. Before this happens, however, Josuke reveals that she's standing on his shadow. All his memories subsequently return. He reveals that he set up the whole situation from earlier. Daya confirms that she didn't attack under her father's orders. She just did this out of her own love for Josuke. Daya still wants Josuke to like her, so he decides to use her for his investigation on the mark. Daya confirms it's the mark of a publisher. Josuke and her subsequently break into the room, which looks like a small office with a library. The mark is on a book titled Steel Ball Run Race, Complete Record. Josuke wakes up underneath his mattress the next morning. Norisuke then carefully monitors Josuke and Daya from afar. Josuke watches Joshu shave, thinking his beard is getting a little bit on the long side himself. Josuke begins to shave. He uses his soft and wet bubbles, which transports his shaved hair to Joshu and Hato. Norisuke eats breakfast, wondering why Josuke isn't following Daya's orders like before. Afterwards, Josuke and Daya open up the Steel Ball Run book, written by Norisuke the first. Josuke finds out that Daya's grandfather took second place in the race. At the end of the book, there's a family tree for the Higashikata family. It turns out that the first generation Norisuke had a daughter, and her name was Rina, and she married Johnny Joestar 1 year after the Steel Ball Run. What's odd about the book is that it chronicles the Joestar family tree as well. No, I don't understand. Kira is a descendant of the Joestar family, which means that he's a distant relative of the Higashikata family. Josuke wants to investigate Yoshikage Kira's father, Yoshiteru. Josuke tidies up the room on his way out. Both Kira and his father are dead, but Holly Joestar, his mother, is still alive. What I'll be investigating is the family line of the Joestars and Kira's. What am I? Josuke's laundry mixes in with Joshu's. Josuke finds some of Joshu's money in his laundry, as the man himself walks up and instructs him to get his mitts off his shirt. Joshu slaps him, accusing Josuke of stealing his money. Joshu entices Josuke to hit him back, as he conceals the blade behind his back. Norisuke breaks things up. He calms down his son and talks to Josuke about attending school. After everyone separates, Josuke uses his bubble to divert a security camera so he can call Yasuho. Yasuho is having trouble contacting Holly Joestar. Yasuho then instructs Josuke to use his GPS to meet her at her shrine. Yasuho calls the university hospital where Holly is working, finding out that she's currently staying there as a patient. While following the GPS, Josuke is instructed to make a U-turn. He then enters an alley and is led to a closed road. Josuke calls Yasuho and finds out that Holly is in the hospital. Afterwards, the GPS continues to frustrate him. He writes the directions on a notebook, but a man on a motorcycle drives past him, sending his GPS into a spin. Soft and Wet then blocks a sharp metal point from hitting Josuke on the neck. Josuke uses his map to get to a set of stairs, but the man on the motorcycle lurks behind him. The man on the motorcycle turns around, yet Josuke is knocked back by a gust of wind. A metal shard then gashes into the back of his head, leaving him in a state of disarray. That rider dressed in all black! It's his stand attack! It's cold! What is he? Josuke pulls out the shard from his head and summons his stand, Soft and Wet. Josuke calls Yasuho to tell her it's too dangerous for him to see her right now. Josuke wonders what's going on with the GPS, as the black suit rider returns once more. Josuke is hit with another gust of wind, as a cavalcade of shards goes into his eyes. What with the wind? My blood is so cold! A pen gashes into his body. Josuke struggles to keep his eyes open, claiming he's going to attack with the intent to kill. Josuke's saliva begins to solidify as he struggles to breathe. The GPS instructs him to go upwards. Josuke finally realizes that the stand inside the GPS was attempting to help him with useful advice. He then grabs onto the electrical pole and kicks the rider off of the motorcycle. This GPS is my ally! I was saved by the GPS! Yasuho scratches a wound around her ankle that looks similar to the one that Josuke had at the very beginning of our story. Yasuho then hears a woman calculating the distance of birds off in the distance, similar to what Josuke was doing at the beginning of the story. Holly thinks Yasuho is an actress in a porn magazine, but Yasuho denies this. Yasuho inquires about Holly's son, Yoshikage Kira. A nurse removes Yasuho from the room and calls security on her. As she's removed, Holly notices her shadow taking on the form of a stand. If she realizes that, she will give strength to my son. Surely, this is also fate. Josuke continues to follow the GPS's advice, making his way through someone's house. The motorcycle rider waits for Josuke inside the pond. Josuke runs into the house, with the rider blasting the old lady with a gust of wind. Josuke realizes that the GPS is aiding him, but he also wonders if the enemy can hear the voice as well. Josuke listens to the GPS regardless, leading him to an open door that results in an avalanche of snow falling upon him. Josuke calls upon Soft and Wet, but the rider tears up his arm. The biker looks poised for another attack, but a kid in the house opens a door. This makes Josuke realize something very important. He instructs the kid to close the door, which he does. He tells the kid to open the window for him. The stand does not appear. Josuke realizes that whenever he opens something, a door, a notebook, or a cell phone, that the biker locks onto him. But when someone else opens something, nothing happens. Therefore, the stand is only targeting him. On his way out, Josuke stares at a family photo, experiencing a feeling of longing and sadness, realizing that no one in this world is looking at a photograph of him. Josuke makes his way to the hospital in search of Yasuho. Josuke backs away from the front door, waiting for someone else to open it. He backs into a taxi cab, causing the door to fling open, revealing the motorcycle rider inside. Josuke summons Soft and Wet to prevent himself from getting run over by the rider. Soft and Wet bashes the stand in the face with several punches. Josuke looks to be in trouble, but realizes that the face is now exposed. The rider looks to pin Josuke against a phone pole, which would likely be a fatal collision. Josuke opens his cell phone, looking for an alternate route to help save him. The phone calls for a taxi. Josuke tells the driver to close the door, which makes the rider disappear into thin air. Josuke is still tossed backwards due to the momentum, however. Before the stand disappeared, Soft and Wet attached a soap bubble to his body. With this information, he's able to find out that Kyo, the housekeeper, is the stand user for the motorcycle rider. Kyo throws a pen at Josuke that opens up in his hand, summoning the bike rider once more. Josuke, however, beats her to a pulp with Soft and Wet, ending the fight for good. Josuke questions her about her objective. He then notices a star-shaped birthmark on her neck, in the same position that he has his. "Who is my enemy?" yells Josuke. "If you go to where Holly Joestar is, I'll kill you." Josuke decides not to see Holly Joestar at the moment, but he still wants to see Yasuho. He looks to leave, but Kyo tells him to stick out his tongue. She claims to be the daughter of Holly Joestar. As she inspects Josuke's tongue, she says, "Yeah, I knew it. There's definitely a connecting seam. 4 eyeballs and 2 tongues." Yasuho exits the hospital and finally locates Josuke. Unfortunately, the wound around her ankle begins to act up. Suddenly, Josuke is gone from her sight. Yasuho is placed on a gurney by a nurse and is rushed back to the hospital. Yasuho notices that she's in a room adjacent to Holly's. The doctors talk about how parts of Holly's brain and organs are mysteriously missing. It almost seems as though they were stolen. However, there's no signs of surgery. "You're Holly Joestar's daughter and Yoshikage Kira's little sister. Say I believe that. Do you know who I am?" Kyo infiltrated the Higashikata house in order to protect her mother. Kyo and Holly are the only living members of the Kira family tree. Kyo and Josuke then move to a remote location. Kyo pulls out a lemon and a tangerine and buries them underground. "Calm your heart and accept it, because it's the truth." She pulls out the fruit from the ground and cuts them in half. Surprisingly, the fruit has traded parts and become amalgamations of each other. "I'm me. There's no way I'm anybody but me. Who the hell am I? Answer me!" "You are a fusion of Yoshikage's body and your own. Your minds are fused as well." Kyo explains that Yoshikage's bubbles would just explode when they touch something. Josuke's bubbles, on the other hand, take something from someone. One half of Josuke is Kira, but who's the other half? It may very well be that the Higashikata family knows something about this. Just what sort of person was Yoshikage Kira? But that is one part. There is also one more person. The entire Higashikata family comes to the breakfast table in their swimsuits. The family had to cancel their trip to Hawaii because Hato didn't attain her passport. Joshu enters in his regular clothes, arguing about the expiration date on some milk. "Norisuke-san, I want to go to school," says Josuke. Josuke also asks for a cell phone, but Joshu angrily snaps back at him. Norisuke instructs Joshu to take Josuke to school with him. Joshu then hands Josuke a geometry problem to intimidate him. However, Josuke figures it out with ease. Joshu makes excuses for losing in their earlier fight, and instructs Josuke not to hang around with Yasuho. Joshu explains that he got his money extorted from him on this road, and today he's looking to exact revenge. Joshu states that Josuke will be the one ripping them off. As the two scope out the area, a woman claims the two stepped on a little girl's toy and broke it. Joshu is instructed to look at the bottom of his shoe, and he sees a sticker from the toy stuck to it. The girl cries as the two are quickly surrounded by several men in the area. Embarrassed by the situation and not wanting the police to get involved, Joshu pays the woman a hefty sum to keep the situation under wraps. Josuke inquires about the situation from earlier and asks Joshu if he really stepped on the toy. Joshu isn't sure he did, but he felt as though he had no choice in the matter.
Everyone knows that this is Shakedown Road, and you always get your money extorted by somebody. An old man tells Josuke he's got blood on his sleeve. The man claims that Josuke broke his shop's water tanks, and he's looking for compensation. The man claims that the blood belongs to a turtle that costs 330,000 yen. Josuke denies involvement, but the man will hunt them down, and the quickest way to resolve this is to pay the 330,000 yen. The two look at Joshu's video recording as an alibi, but it turns out Josuke was blown by a gust of wind in an instant, and then back to his original location without either the boys noticing what happened. Joshu did notice, however, that the leaves in the area were moving in a strange fashion, but he keeps this information to himself. The old man threatens to call over the two officers, but Josuke grabs his neck with Soft and Wet. The old man can't see Soft and Wet, making Josuke question whether he really was the one responsible. The man takes 20,000 yen and claims he'll collect another 20,000 yen every month. Josuke borrows Joshu's cell phone so he can videotape himself. One of the gangsters then claims that they broke his cell phone. The two replay the video footage, finding out that Josuke knocked the cell phone out of the man's hand with his elbow. Josuke is in disbelief. The gangsters instruct them to pick up the flower pot. They find a package underneath and are instructed to deliver it to a woman in a red dress. Josuke asks Joshu if they are comrades, and Joshu verifies that they are indeed family. Josuke's bubbles won't allow him to see what's inside the package. When they bring over the package, the girl is going to show them her tattoo. They're going to nod and then hand over the package. Josuke figures out that a stand is present, but he's not sure where the stand user is. The girl reveals her tattoo. Josuke nods, and then the girl places her purse on a pile of leaves. The two police officers begin to move in, but one is smacked in the face. Josuke unconsciously elbows the other one as the two purses switch places. While Josuke is pinned to the ground by the officers, Joshu figures out that the gangsters and the woman just performed a transaction. Joshu then notices stands underneath the leaves. The gangsters realize that the money is not in the bag. Turns out that Joshu was able to intercept it without anyone noticing. The gangsters use the leaves to catch up to Joshu and tackle him to the ground. They threaten to cut him with a knife, but then Joshu notices a screw coming out of his hand. One of the gangsters also notices a screw in his hand. He proceeds to unscrew the bolt, causing his hand to fall off. What the hell? The gangster's other hand falls off. Joshu realizes he's doing this as he decides to run away. The stand effect wears off as the man's hands return to normal. Joshu realizes that the money he stole is merely a pile of leaves. The policemen find the money inside of Josuke's clothing. Josuke reveals that he sent some leaves into Joshu's clothing with his soap bubbles. When Joshu ran away, he brought the money back from inside the envelope, fooling everyone. I've won! Josuke calls Yasuho while she's in class, but since it's Joshu's phone, she doesn't respond. Yasuho looks at the GPS and discovers a monument named Joestar Jizo. The monument was named after Johnny Joestar, who died a mysterious death. Apparently, he was found dead with a large boulder on his head. Yasuho keys in on his wife, Rina, thinking she was involved in some fashion, despite the fact that no evidence came forward to convict her at the time. Meanwhile, Josuke stares at Joestar Jizo. The old pet shop owner then recounts the legend surrounding Johnny Joestar. Johnny came to Japan to teach the army horse riding techniques, but that was a front. The real reason he came to Japan was because of Rina's sake. Over time, Rina was attacked by a disease that caused her to lose her memories one by one. Then they would come back, and then they would disappear again. So Johnny decided it would be best if she lived out her days in Japan, where she was born. Desperate for a solution, however, Johnny thought that the power of a holy corpse could cure her illness. For the sake of the one he loved, Johnny Joestar unearthed the corpse. Johnny managed to escape his pursuers and board a boat. He hid the corpse in a cave on Morio's coast and brought Rina to the location of the corpse. Removing the disease, however, carried the risk of exchanging the disease for something of equivalent value. Rina awoke with all her ailments healed. Unfortunately, his son, George Joestar, received his mother's disease. With tears in his eyes and his son in his arms, Johnny vowed he'd never use the holy corpse again. Johnny used his tusk to remove the curse from his son, but due to the equivalent exchange, he received the curse himself. George is completely healed as he watches his dad get crushed by a large rock. Not long afterwards, the people from America retrieved the holy corpse. That's when the ginkgo leaf started moving things in an instantaneous fashion. The old man claims that the legend is just a mere fantasy, but he still charges Josuke 3,000 yen for the story. Meanwhile, Yasuo makes her way to Meditation Pine. She reads an old story about a 1 or 2 year old boy being discovered on the beach. He was naked except for a cap, socks, and a necklace with highly valued jewels around his neck. The article with the baby appeared on the same day as the one concerning Johnny Joestar's death. The Meditation Pine used to be called Twin Pines. As Yasuo descends down to take a closer look, a cryptic hand grabs her and drags her inside the hole. The mysterious person begins to grope and lick her in a creepy fashion. Yasuo then finds herself inside the Higashikata family cellar. Tsurugi is playing in the room as Yasuo notices that it's filled with materials from the 1930s. Tsurugi explains that after the earthquake occurred, it connected the hidden cave to the Higashikata estate. Tsurugi wants to play paper fortune teller with the girl. Yasuo opens up the paper, surprised by what she sees inside. She looks to leave, but realizes that her cell phone is missing. She grabs Tsurugi, finding out that she is actually a he. Tsurugi explains that when the first son is born in the Higashikata family, they're dressed as a girl until the age of 12. To trick the demons that cause the disease. And it's gone down this way for each generation of Higashikata male. Paisley Park, Yasuo's stand, then summons itself and heads over to Josuke's location to entice him to text Yasuo. The phone buzzes underneath the rug, but when Yasuo looks, it's not there. She then finds the phone folded up like a frog. The phone attacks Yasuo. Yasuo then retrieves the phone and leaves the room. She then comes across a room that looks somewhat like a prison. Tsurugi offers to show her the way out, but Yasuo declines and finds the way out herself. Yasuo reads Josuke's text message, wondering why he's using Joshu's phone. Inside the town, Yasuo becomes enamored when it looks like everyone's got the same face. The origami frog from Tsurugi then approaches her. Yasuo returns home to put on some new contact lenses. Her mother approaches her in the bathroom with the same face as everyone else, freaking her out once again. Yasuo looks in the mirror and finds out that her face looks just like her mother's and everyone else's. She leaves the house in a panic. She then sees Tsurugi playing on the sidewalk. Yasuo calls Josuke so they can meet in 5 minutes. Tsurugi folds the origami into a plane and flies it over to Josuke's location. After stepping on the origami, Josuke sees the same face on everyone else that Yasuo is seeing as well. Tsurugi offers Yasuo a drink, but she knocks it out of his hands and instructs him not to follow her anymore. Tsurugi suggests that Yasuo doesn't know who she is, so she's projecting those feelings onto Josuke. Yasuo and Josuke miss each other at the front entrance of the Sesame Honey Cafe. Josuke recognizes Tsurugi on the street. Tsurugi suggests to Josuke that he head home. Joshu angrily takes his phone back, but Josuke is perplexed as to why he has the same face as everyone else. Inside the shop, Yasuo is smacked in the face. She receives a call from what sounds like Josuke, so she decides to look for him outside. "It's me!" Yasuo dives into the arms of Joshu, thinking it's Josuke. Joshu mishears her words, thinking she said Joshu Suki, which means, I like/love you Joshu. Joshu begins to grope Yasuo. Yasuo states that she's wet and wants to be alone, though she's just bleeding at this point. The two head to the bathroom where Joshu rips off his pants and uses his stand to tear off Yasuo's clothes. Joshu professes his love for the girl. But it's then that she realizes it's not Josuke. She knocks him out with the toilet lid and runs towards some police officers. Unfortunately, these are not police officers, but a group of thugs who are keen on drugging Yasuo for their own perverted reasons.
Want some drugs?
Yes.
Paisley Park twists the driver's foot, causing the car to crash. A woman who claims to be Yasuo's mother apologizes for earlier. Yasuo doesn't know what to believe at this point, so she begs for Tsurugi's help. Josuke realizes that someone is attacking Yasuo with their stand ability, and he needs to find her ASAP. Inside the room again, Yasuo seems to have accepted her fate. Tsurugi admits to using a stand attack called origami to make her lose her ability to distinguish between faces. His stand is called Paper Moon King. Yasuo accepts some of the responsibility for the event. Tsurugi explains that the eldest son of the Higashikata family always gets ill when they turn 10 years old and die. That's why the second son or daughter ends up succeeding them as the head of the family. The disease makes the child's skin become like a rock, and then they die. However, they have found a means to escape the disease. For example, Grandpa Norisuke is the eldest son, and he's still alive to this day. Yasuo dozes off as she thinks of the Higashikata curse and Holly Joestar. A strange man appears in the room as Yasuo sleeps. The man proceeds to suffocate Yasuo, attempting to draw out her stand, Paisley Park. Once the stand comes out, the man determines it's a long-distance type stand. The stand escapes, giving Josuke useful information about Tsurugi, though he doesn't know of the stand's involvement. The mysterious man identifies himself as Yotsuyu, and he's an architect. He doesn't want Josuke's memories to return, because he's gonna die one more time. Yasuo uses an origami banana that's powered by Tsurugi's stand to trip Yotsuyu. The man disappears as Yasuo escapes from the room, wondering who he is. Josuke wakes up the next morning, seeing Tsurugi trip with a bag of groceries. Josuke wonders about an odd staircase in the backyard, as Norisuke asks him how school is going. Josuke then notices a rather large bump on the back of Joshu's head. Joshu proceeds to brag about his loving encounter with Yasuo. Later on, Josuke looks to tail Tsurugi outside. Norisuke stops him, wondering where he's going. Josuke admits that Norisuke is the most suspicious member of the family. However, he asks about Tsurugi and Holly Joestar. Norisuke requests that he ask one question at a time. Did you kill Yoshikage Kira? No, I did not kill Kira. And I've got 3 reasons. Number 1, he wouldn't have taken Josuke in if he was half of Kira. Number 2, the Higashikatas and the Joestars share the same family curse. And number 3, he needed Yoshikage Kira because he may have found a method in curing the illness. With half of Kira's mind, the answer for the curse may be inside of Josuke. That is why Norisuke accepted him into the family in the first place. Norisuke survived the disease in exchange for his parents dying, but he doesn't elaborate further on this. I want to ask one more thing. What is your stand? Norisuke gives Josuke a glimpse of his stand, which looks like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle.
You wanna play a little game?
Norisuke then explains that stands are like assholes. You don't go around showing them to other people.
It is your new issue of gigantic assets.
Truly sagely advice. Josuke gets nervous, thinking that someone was behind him just now. He looks at the scenery, thinking something is fishy. The flower pots then accelerate towards them and trap them on all sides. So you came all the way here to die a second time, says Yotsuyu from a trapdoor. Soft and Wet can't get the fragments off of Josuke. With the help of Norisuke and Soft and Wet, they pull Josuke out of the stand user's range so that the fragments have no effect. Tsurugi then explains that this has nothing to do with his grandpa, and he should just go home. Josuke questions Norisuke about the mysterious man, but he doesn't know anything about this. Josuke notices the hatch on the ground, realizing that Yasuo is being held captive. Despite what Josuke believes, Norisuke explains that he does care about the boy. A cryptic hand touches Josuke's. The two become alarmed when the scenery in the garden changes once again. They also notice a strange sound. They identify it as a chestnut rolling down an incline from a tree. The two are quickly surrounded by a horde of chestnuts. With a little recourse, the two rush towards the hatch, with Norisuke begging his grandson to open it up.
Norisuke reminisces about his childhood. He remembers a time when he asked his mother if the Higashikata curse was real. His mother grabs his face and reassures him that the disease can be cured, and that his father was able to beat it. We then see an image of Norisuke as a stone child as we return to the present. Norisuke looks down at his grandson, begging for him to open the hatch. Tsurugi claims that if he hands over Josuke, the man will cure his disease. Hence the reason Tsurugi lured Josuke here in the first place. The chestnuts pierce their needles into Josuke and Norisuke's skin. Josuke instructs Norisuke to use his stand to open up the hatch from the inside. He does just that. Unfortunately, the hatch is chained up with a lock. He just wants to get rid of Josuke, says Tsurugi. Norisuke attempts to bash the chain with a rock. The sheer amount of needles overwhelms the two. Josuke uses Soft and Wet to steal the moisture from the chestnuts. As the needles disintegrate, Norisuke bashes the lock, allowing the two to get inside. The two close the door. Norisuke demands to know who the man is. Tsurugi says that Yotsuyu can cure him. I know him. Yotsuyu is the man that did the architectural design of my mansion. Yotsuyu's attacks are unrelenting. Those objects will continue pushing towards them until they reach their organs. Though Tsurugi is terrified of the disease, his grandfather attempts to calm him down. Be a man. I swear I'll protect you. Josuke walks in on Yasuo as she sleeps. The house Yotsuyu designed can withstand earthquakes. When he was working on the plans, he worked in the basement. Tsurugi explains that there was a dog that turned into stone, but thanks to Yotsuyu, it was healed. Norisuke inquires about the specific details of this occurrence. Apparently, Yotsuyu fed something to the dog, and after he ate it, he was cured. Tsurugi wants to know what he fed the dog. Josuke wants to know why Yotsuyu wants him dead. Tsurugi explained there's a fissure in the ground outside. Josuke figures he used the fissure to enter the basement, and thusly wants to chase him down. Norisuke tells him to stand down, as he'll be the one following him. Norisuke claims that he came here through the air vent. Norisuke's stand is called King Nothing, and it can see smells. Though it has no physical power, it can be used to track people down, in this case, Yasuho. Norisuke senses that this is a trap, but they can't let this opportunity slip through their fingers. As they follow King Nothing, Norisuke mentions that he caught the disease in the winter of 1971. Everything in his body turned into stone, yet he still remained conscious. Back then, my mother took my place for the disease in my stead. In order to protect the eldest son, someone else in the family would perform an equivalent exchange for the disease. This is a family custom that's gone on for generations. Norisuke claims that no food could cure the disease, and that Yotsuyu was deliberately misleading Tsurugi. King Nothing turns around, indicating that Yasuho is close. Josuke spots her sleeping amongst some rocks. Josuke reaches for Yasuho as the stone version of Yotsuyu reaches for his arm. Soft and Wet pummels him down as Josuke goes to Yasuho's side. Josuke claims that Yotsuyu can live while having rock skin. Josuke instructs Norisuke to lock onto his scent. A flashback is shown of Norisuke's mother performing the equivalent exchange to save his life. Josuke confirms that Yotsuyu's body was literal stone, and he's now hiding amongst the rocks. King Nothing picks up on Yotsuyu's scent from Yasuho's body and begins to pursue him. They think they got him, so Soft and Wet begins punching the rock. Josuke rips off a chunk, causing the rock to bleed. Containers of pesticides then surround them. They thusly have a choice: finish off Yotsuyu or run away and get surrounded by the pesticide. Yotsuyu changes his location amongst the rocks. I will obtain it. Yotsuyu makes a chess reference, claiming that Josuke's king and rook are forked, and he's in a losing position.
Kasparov is conglomerating his pawns into a mega chessatron.
Soft and Wet proceeds to pummel him. Norisuke instructs Josuke to leave Yasuho behind, but the boy can't do that. Josuke claims he won't use his soap bubbles for defense, but rather, he's going to attack. You said my king and rook were forked, but that's wrong. I've got checkmate.
And oh, this is extraordinary. Kasparov is pissing all over the board.
Josuke catches the man inside one of his soap bubbles. I am a rock. I am an island. Various rocks smash into the bubble, breaking it open and releasing Yotsuyu. The pesticide containers then fly towards Norisuke and Josuke. The pesticides then smash into Josuke and Yasuho.
Yotsuyu wants Norisuke to be alive so he can steal his entire fortune at some point in the future. Yotsuyu claims it's impossible for Josuke to escape at this point. Josuke reiterates that he's going on the offensive. He rushes towards Yotsuyu, pushing him off of the cliff into the ocean. Josuke uses his Soft and Wet bubbles to converse with Yotsuyu underwater. I'm making you sink, or maybe you'd like to tell me who I am. Josuke uses one of his bubbles to communicate a message to Norisuke. He tells him that he needs nets that you'd use to catch fish. A net is subsequently tossed down as Josuke uses it to wrap up Yotsuyu. You'll be stuck not breathing as a stone on the ocean floor forever. Yotsuyu claims he put him between some rocks and he killed him earlier, but due to the walleyes, he's still alive. Yotsuyu's stand attempts to fight back. Josuke blows up a chunk of the stone with one of his bubbles. Either I attach weights to you and make you sink, or you tell me who I am. I am a rock. Josuke uses his bubbles to take all the air from inside his lungs. The one whose actions are correct is Tsurugi Higashikata. Josuke returns to the surface with Yotsuyu, claiming he's dead. The parts of Yotsuyu's body in the water begin to disintegrate. Norisuke wonders if Yotsuyu was really a living creature, and wants to get a chemical analysis done on the remains. Due to his unique body composition, a small amount of oxygen loss was detrimental, causing him to drown rather easily. Tsurugi explains that Yotsuyu didn't have a house, bank account, or a phone. Norisuke then notices that Yotsuyu's dick fell off.
My dick fell off!
Or maybe he wasn't a man at all, but a woman.
The person before you was what you call packing, and I didn't want to see that.
I'm packing too.
Norisuke suggests that he probably has comrades that are out and about. Tsurugi wonders about the food he gave to the dog to cure it. In the past, Josuke saw some kind of fruit that was connected with the disease. Because he saw it earlier, Yotsuyu attempted to eliminate him. Yasuo wakes up briefly, finding a cryptic piece of fruit in her hand. She puts it down and decides to go back to sleep. I'm certain I was once a person that came here to Morio, pursuing the disease that makes you become like stone and die, that the Higashikata family has inherited for generations. In other words, there is a way to cure the Higashikata family disease. Did I know the cure? If there's a way to cure it, I'm going to find it, for the sake of finding out who I am. Meanwhile, Norisuke attempts to catch the dog that Yotsuyu healed. Josuke thinks of Yasuo in an endearing fashion. He checks up on her, but she's not in her bed. Norisuke explains that she already woke up and went home. Norisuke elaborates on Yotsuyu's past, saying that he stole his identity from someone else. The healed dog then emerges from the wall, grabbing the fruits on the bed. This is the fruit, Tsurugi-chan. Norisuke inspects the fruit as Tsurugi desperately attempts to grab it from him. King Nothing memorizes the smell, hoping that they can locate the tree that the fruit came from. Tsurugi decides to take the dog in, naming him Rocky, quite ironically. In their search, Norisuke provides Josuke with a tour of the Higashikata parlor, touting the freshness of their fruit and the deliciousness of their melon parfaits. The two grab a melon parfait, as Norisuke explains its various components. Number 1, cut melon with original price of 7,500 yen, jelly and whipped cream, ice cream, melon granita, champagne sherbet, crunchy corn biscuit, melon jelly, more whipped cream, and finally, melon juice. That is the shape of the glass I came up with. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, everything has a natural flow. Josuke takes his first bite as it squirts out of his mouth. Just then, Jobin, the eldest son, bows down in front of them. Jobin and his father share a joke, as the two embrace each other for a hug. Jobin shows his father an expensive beetle bought during his travels. Josuke and Jobin then have an awkward moment where they stare at each other. Jobin offers the beetle to Josuke as a present, but he declines. With Norisuke embracing his son, King Nothing identifies the smell of the fruit on Jobin's handkerchief. Joshu becomes jealous when he sees Josuke's stag beetle from Jobin. Joshu then opens up the door to Jobin's room, revealing a huge collection of beetles. As the two walk in, they see Jobin working on a collection of robotic toys. Jobin then quotes the poet Mitsuyu Aida, scolding Joshu for not knowing who he is. Jobin explains that beetles need protein. In the past, Josuke confronted Tsurugi outside. Tell me about your dad's stand ability. I'm planning to corner Jobin Higashikata. Josuke is certain that Jobin was at the place where the mysterious fruit is located, and he figures Norisuke knows something about this. Tsurugi explains that his grandpa's stand is automatic. Josuke claims that Jobin knows how to cure the disease, and he's keeping this information from Norisuke for some reason. Josuke thusly wants to corner him about the matter. Tsurugi is reluctant to say anything, claiming that his dad is a good person and he wouldn't do anything bad. Josuke, nevertheless, continues to pressure the boy. In the present, Josuke wonders if Jobin is housing living stag beetles. Back to Tsurugi and Josuke's past conversation, the boy reiterates that he doesn't want any harm coming to his dad. Josuke henceforth promises that no harm will come to Jobin. Tsurugi reveals that his dad's weakness is stag beetles. He's definitely got a bug specimen room in the house, so you have to go there, Josuke. Then try saying, "Let's make our stag beetles fight." In the now, Jobin takes Joshu and Josuke to his living collection of stag beetles. Jobin states that stag beetles think for 45 seconds, then they forget right away. Essentially, they have a form of intelligence. Josuke mentions that the mandibles on the one look thinner than the one that he's got. I'll bet he could win against yours in a fight. Josuke attempts to play it off nonchalantly, with Joshu scolding him for speaking out of turn. Jobin, however, becomes intrigued with the idea of a fight. Josuke recalls Tsurugi's advice to win in an overwhelming fashion against his dad. Josuke then acts as though he doesn't want them to fight, but Jobin begins to explain the rules of the battle. The fighting arena is made of chemically hardened resin, with a diameter of 27.5 centimeters. The battle time is one round of 45 seconds. If you're pushed out of the arena, you lose. If one is raised into the air, they lose after a count of 10. A paintbrush can't be used to touch their bodies, but it can be used to excite them. Jobin then asks Josuke again if he's up for a simple test of curiosity. What would happen if I were to win? Do you want to bet? Asks Josuke. I have a Hercules in here. If you win, I'll give it to you, replies Jobin. Jobin states that he wants to give his beetle fighting spirit. He places the beetle inside of a terrarium with a Japanese wasp. The battle begins with the beetle cutting the wasp in half.
Are you not entertained?
There's one more rule. If it's killed, it loses. For 45 seconds, they're gladiators. And you said you were betting, right? Josuke, what exactly are you going to be betting? Prior to the battle, Josuke wonders what makes a person bad. The three gentlemen sit down, with Jobin wondering what Josuke wants to bet. Jobin then retracts his earlier bet, saying that if he loses, that he'll shave his eyebrow. And if you lose, you have to shave off one of your eyebrows. Jobin gives Josuke a chance to get out of the bet, but Josuke is confident that he can win, so he makes the bet and places his beetle on the battleground. Jobin does the same as it's time for the two beetles to throw down for 45 seconds. Prior to the battle, Tsurugi didn't have any information regarding his dad's stand ability, but he implored Josuke to focus on the stag beetle fight. Tsurugi also gave him useful advice. The best thing to do with the male stag beetle is to give it female pheromones with a brush. In real time, the stag beetles begin grappling. Jobin's beetle quickly pushes back Josuke's to the edge of the arena. Jobin wonders if Josuke's brush has female pheromones. Just then, Jobin's beetle cuts off one of the mandibles of Josuke's beetle. Jobin reveals that he sharpened the mandibles of his beetle prior to the battle, hence the reason that they look thinner. Jobin's beetle begins twisting Josuke's, as it looks like it's over. Josuke calmly uses his paintbrush. Inside the brush, unbeknownst to anyone, are his soft and wet bubbles, and they contain the female pheromones. After smelling the pheromones, Josuke's beetle gains a surge of energy, lifting up Jobin's beetle into the air. Josuke implores Joshu to begin the count. Before that happens though, Jobin's beetle runs out of the ring, making Josuke the winner. Jobin proceeds to shave off his left eyebrow as he sees in rage. Meanwhile, Yasuo mentions that she's been seeing some weird hallucinations lately, caused by Paisley Park. Tsurugi arrives at the door, explaining that he needs Yasuo's power to guide him to the fruit tree. Jobin finishes up shaving his eyebrow. Josuke looks to leave, but Joshu accuses him of cheating. Jobin looks at his missing eyebrow and begins to lose his composure. Jobin instructs Joshu to cheer for Josuke this time around in their rematch. Josuke refuses a rematch though, considering that his beetle's mandible is already broken. In truth, however, Josuke wants a rematch, since that's the reason he came here in the first place. But this time around, if he wins, he wants Jobin's Lamborghini Gallardo. Meanwhile, Tsurugi tells Yasuo that the Lamborghini's event data recorder will tell them the location of the fruit, hence the reason Yasuo's stand is critical in this mission. Meanwhile, Josuke uses glue to fix his beetle's mandible, cause I guess glue fixes mandibles now? I don't know. Glue! Jobin accepts the terms of the deal, throwing the key for the Lamborghini on the table.
Lamborghini. Schwerer Panzer-Schwebwagen, 7,5 cm Sonderkraftfahrzeug, 234 4 Panzerabwehrkanonenwagen.
Jobin pulls out a golden beetle for this match. He implores his brother to support Josuke, which he does in an awkward fashion. Jobin states that when Josuke loses, he wants to lick one of his eyeballs. The two beetles lock onto each other in an epic exchange. Though Jobin's beetle is significantly smaller than Josuke's, its mandibles cut through things like a saw. That being said, Josuke's beetle pushes him back with ease. Jobin's Rosenbergi fights back. He flips over Josuke's beetle, causing him to cower in fear. The Rosenbergi proceeds to cut off one of the legs of Josuke's beetle. It pushes the beetle off of the edge, but it manages to hold on with just one of its legs. Josuke yells at Joshu to grab the illustrated insect guide. When beetles feel strong vibrations and other shocks to their leg joints, they instinctually react by assuming a state of apparent death, playing dead as it were. The beetle proceeds forward, however Josuke feels that something is amiss, possibly an underhanded trick on Jobin's part. I can see it. Josuke Higashikata is definitely manipulating something and he's trying to keep it hidden. The Rosenbergi breaks off another one of Josuke's beetle's legs. The Rosenbergi lifts the beetle into the air, aiming to snap off another one of its hind legs. Josuke's beetle thusly falls out of the ring. Fortunately for Josuke, the round went over the 45-second time limit. Because of this, they'll have to restart the round. Jobin continues to half-heartedly cheer for Josuke. As the two brush off their beetles, Josuke points out that something was dripping out of Jobin's beetle, almost like it was melting. There was liquid oozing out of it. What is that? That hole? I'll answer you, Josuke. It's wax. Jobin opened up a hole and put wax inside of his beetle. When the wax melts, it causes convulsive movements. It allows Jobin to control its movements like a zombie. Because of this invasive measure, the Rosenbergie will die in around 20 minutes. In the next 45 seconds, we'll have our winner. Round 2 thusly begins. We then see Josuke's bubbles travel to a nearby thermometer in a mysterious fashion. Josuke reveals that temperature was inside the soap bubbles, and they quickly make the thermometer go up to 60 degrees Celsius. Josuke stole this air from Jobin's brush, which indicates that he's controlling his Rosenbergie through temperature. Meanwhile, the Rosenbergie charges into Josuke's beetle, slicing off one of its mandibles. The temperature inside the arena is normal, yet the Rosenbergie continues to get hotter. The Rosenbergie continues tearing Josuke's beetle to pieces, flipping it on its back once more. Josuke looks up, catching a glimpse of Jobin's stand. Josuke deduces that Jobin's stand allows him to manipulate temperature, though he's gonna pretend as though he didn't see this. Joshu becomes excited, kicking the terranium with the dead hornet inside. Jobin and Joshu then wonder why the hornet terranium is on the ground. In addition, they notice that the bottom half of the hornet is missing, and suspiciously, it's close to Josuke. Jobin takes note of the Rosenbergie's erratic movements. In fact, it's convulsing. The Rosenbergie goes bonkers, with liquid oozing out of all of its body. The Rosenbergie then explodes, dying on the spot. Jobin checks his brush, noticing that there's hornet venom on it, which means he unknowingly put hornet venom inside his beetle when he was cleaning him off. Looks like I won the Lamborghini Gallardo. Get back in here. Hey, come here, Josuke. This isn't over yet. Close the door. Come back inside. Before closing the door, Josuke floats the Lamborghini keys to Tsurugi with one of his bubbles. Tsurugi tells Yasuho that they've got to hurry before Jobin figures out Josuke's real objective. What did you come here for? This battle. You planned it from the beginning, didn't you? Tsurugi mentions that his dad has a secret that he's keeping from everyone else. My dad knows where the fruit is, but for some reason, he's hiding it from his family. Tsurugi helps Yasuho sneak through the window to the garage. As they look at the car, Yasuho wonders what Tsurugi wants her to do. He wants Yasuho to figure out where his dad went with his stand. Yasuho doesn't know what a stand is, since Paisley Park works unconsciously. Yasuho receives a question on her phone. Tsurugi then implores her to choose an answer. After doing so, the car opens up, and Yasuho sees Paisley Park inside. Who are you? Yasuho and Tsurugi then review the travel data. Jobin determines that Josuke came here for something else, and not the Lamborghini. Who are you? Asks Jobin as Josuke's nose begins to bleed. Jobin offers him a tissue, as Josuke determines that heat is warming up his nose. Who do you hear about me liking beetles from? Jobin presses Josuke to wipe his nose, but Josuke's concerned what Jobin will do to him next. The sprinklers go off in the stag beetle rearing room. Josuke uses this distraction to run away. Josuke then deduces that Josuke was using a stand ability just now. Yasuo and Tsurugi don't find any revealing information about the fruit's location, making Tsurugi suspect that something was erased. Jobin enters the garage as the two hide inside Norisuke's minivan. Joshu suspects that Josuke was after Jobin's travel data, which is correct, but it was just a wild guess on Joshu's part, and Jobin doesn't necessarily believe this. After the two leave, Yasuo uses Paisley Park to look at the security footage from earlier in the day. At 4:38 p.m., Jobin either handed the fruit to a mysterious man or he showed it to him. The two determine that the man's name is Aisho, and he's on the management staff at the baseball stadium. Morio Stadium was damaged in the tsunami, and Yotsuyu did plans for the renovations. Yasuo and Tsurugi spot the man with the potted plant. Tsurugi folds Paisley Park into origami as they track Aisho through the park. All of a sudden, Aisho is no longer holding the potted fruit. They then see the shattered pod on the ground, with the fruit torn apart, as if it had been eaten. The two take notice of a man that was in a wheelchair previously, but thanks to the fruit, he's starting to walk. He enters a car and begins crying, telling his wife it's a beautiful day. He continues raving about the miracle as his eyes turn into stone and fall out of his head. Turns out that he performed an equivalent exchange, trading his eyeballs for his legs. Tsurugi wants to recover the remaining piece on the ground. Unfortunately, Aisho stomps on their combined frog stand. Yasuo provides a brief analogy about her stand, as Aisho battles the two by stomping on the frog stand. Aisho then attempts to call Yotsuyu, but his phone won't make the connection. Aisho looks to smash the frog once again, but Yasuo places a banana peel on the ground. However, Aisho doesn't slip on it. But then the frogs multiply, confusing Aisho. Aisho attempts to crush the frogs, but they're actually just leaves created by Tsurugi's stand. Yasuo determines that Aisho got off work 9 minutes ago and came straight here, which means the fruit might be in Morio Stadium. Aisho deduces that 2 stand users were just attacking him just now. Paper Moon returns to Tsurugi. Just then, a small tornado blocks their path. The vortex destroys their computer and begins attacking them. This is Aisho's stand, and he tracked him here because he touched their combined stand. The two then run away. They climb out of a window and close it shut, trapping the stand on the other side. Unfortunately, the stand reemerges on the window sill, right by them. Aisho determines that something happened to Yotsuyu, hence the reason he can't contact him right now. He mentions that the 2 stand users saw the equivalent exchange aspect of the Rokakaka. Meanwhile, Tsurugi and Yasuo are desperately close to falling off the edge. The two combine their stands to pull over the ladder. They subsequently tumble down it onto the ground. They then run away from the stand, trying to get out of the user's radius. Tsurugi claims that the fruit is power, and it's incredibly beneficial. Yasuo is given another choice on her phone, choosing bus. Tsurugi is then attacked by the vortex. Yasuo grabs his hand and drags him to the bus. The two enter, with Paisley Park closing the door and stomping down on the accelerator. Unfortunately, the vortex materializes inside the bus. Tsurugi determines that the vortex shows up every time he exhales. The two then hold their breath, as the vortex dissipates into thin air. Yasuo can't hold her breath any longer, as the vortex immediately reappears. Yasuo then uses a newspaper to suck the tornado up. Meanwhile, Jobin receives a phone call from Aisho. Jobin informs him that he's not supposed to call this phone number and they're only supposed to meet in public. Aisho determines that the Rokakaka and Yotsu's disappearance is the work of the same person. Jobin immediately thinks of Josuke when he says this, but he doesn't share this information with Aisho. Aisho states he's going to kill the 2 stand users, which makes Jobin incredibly nervous. Tsurugi says that the only way out of this is for them to attack the main body, as he constructs an origami that looks like a car. In the past, Aisho told his girlfriend that if he fell asleep, he couldn't wake up for 1 month. If he loses focus for even a second, his skin becomes hard like a rock and he sleeps. In the now, Yasuo continues fighting off the vortex. The two take a moment to catch their breath as Tsurugi releases his car origami. The two make a mad dash off the bus. In the past, once again, Aisho's girlfriend stole the deed for the house, and when he was asleep, she sold it off and ran away. In the now, Yasuo and Tsurugi run away as fast as they can whilst holding their breath. The two find an ambulance with oxygen mask inside as they watch the vortex dissipate. Unfortunately, the vortex materializes inside the mask. Paisley Park attempts to crush it, but it doesn't work. The two are out of ideas, but just then, Jobin and Aisho walk in. Despite the fact that it's Jobin's son, Aisho is resolute in killing Tsurugi here and now, especially considering that Yotsuyu is most likely dead. He demands Jobin's permission to kill Tsurugi. Tsurugi reveals his master plan though, that he made the buses in the city look like his dad, which means Aisho was talking to a bus this entire time. Tsurugi and Yasuo look at the video footage from the baseball stadium. The two then review the footage of the bus hitting Aisho. After this happened, there was only broken stone and sand on the road. Aisho and Yotsuyu were rock humans, and Jobin had some kind of contract with them, and it all revolves around this mysterious fruit. The two reviewed the security footage of Aisho inside the stadium. Josuke then shows up in the park, causing Yasuo to rush towards him in tears. "Tsurugi-chan!" Yasuo then embraces Josuke. Josuke starts crying too, causing Yasuo to laugh at him. The two take a walk with each other, with Yasuo urging Josuke to sing something for her. I like large fries, I like large fries, I like large fries, but not fried chicken. Not fried chicken, not fried chicken, I just want those crunchies. I like large fries.
And the Grammy goes to...
Bucket with fries.
Josuke receives a message from a curly-haired girl who refers to him as Sechan. Josuke leaves Yasuo to meet up with the girl. The girl knows Josuke, asking him what happened to his cell phone. Josuke doesn't want to reveal too much information, so he acts as though he lost his cell phone. The girl hates Josuke's hat, mentioning that he looks like Yoshikage Kira. After staring at him, she notices that his appearance looks different, causing her to run away. Josuke uses a bubble to find out her name. "Wait, Karira! Don't go! You didn't make a mistake!" Karira embraces Josuke, attempting to kiss him. She doesn't like that Josuke is hanging out with another woman, as she asks to borrow some money. She goes to a food stand to say there was a hair in her food. She gets a refund as Josuke thinks that she's using a stand ability. Karira then plays slots as Josuke wonders who he is. At a cafe, Josuke wonders what's up with this girl's vulgar behavior. She even uses her water glass to wash her toes. He then wonders if she's homeless and how to figure out who he is. Karira leaves with a short man as Josuke proceeds to chase her into the bathroom. Despite what it looks like, Karira was using her stand to make his hair grow. She receives money for this, but her range is only 80 meters, at which point the hair falls out again. Josuke proceeds to question her. Karira doesn't know about her family. She's all about living in the present. Upon leaving the cafe, Karira shows him a photo of herself, Yoshikage Kira, and a third person, who's supposedly Sechan. She then refers to Josuke as Josefumi Kujo. As an aside, the kanji for Kujo are the same as Jotaro's surname, and the Jo kanji in Josefumi is the same as the Jo in Part 4, Josuke's name. Josuke is thusly shocked to learn his real name. Karira uses her power to steal the credit card from a guy inside the cafe. She then empties out his bank account. We then catch a glimpse of Karira's stand. Meanwhile, some police officers approach some soccer players who are kicking a ball in the middle of the street. The officers notice a zipper on the ball. The soccer players don't listen to the police officers' demands, so the officers request backup as the soccer player's hand turns into a stone handcuff. The man puts the handcuff through the officer's jaw. He then puts the other side on the other officer's hand as the two soccer players begin their search for Karira. The soccer brothers ask people if they've seen Karira. Karira mentions that she wants to be a fashion designer as the two head towards Josuke's old home. Karira verbally abuses the cab driver as the two walk from this point forward. Karira then heads for Kira's condo, as Josuke says, "Didn't you hear, Karira-chan? Yoshikage Kira is dead." Karira loses her composure, thinking Kira was murdered. Josuke wonders why Karira would think this. He then explains that Kira was buried in the ground at the Walleyes. "I was buried under the ground as well. I survived. I lost my memory, though my body seems to have undergone an equivalent exchange. There was a Rokakaka tree. Kira had a single tree hidden in a flower pot. Kira disposed of all the other trees and was saving one for his sick mother." Karira suspects that Josefumi changed his appearance to hide from everyone whom were interested in the tree's location. The two soccer players then ambush them, with one dousing Karira with gasoline and lighting her ablaze. Josuke uses his bubbles to remove the flames from Karira. One of the soccer players attacks Josuke, but gets smashed across the face. The two combine their abilities to capture Josuke, as Karira escapes from the area. The next chapter starts off with a detailed description of the rock humans. 95% of rock humans are stand users. They reproduce just like humans do and transform every 6 years. They grow up by molting, and they can live for up to 240 years. They are parasites in a way, using human society for their own ends. Because they sleep for several months, they can't hold down a regular job. The rock human brothers notice that Josuke's stand is similar to Kira's. We then see a stand inside the soccer ball. Josuke uses soft and wet to throw several bolts at the brothers. Josuke then proceeds to beat one of them up with his fighting skills. The brother dribbles the soccer ball and releases a toxic gas from the inside. Josuke protects himself with soft and wet, but some of the corrosive liquid goes through his skin. The poisonous gas is making Josuke sick. The elder brother grabs Josuke from behind as the younger brother kicks his soccer ball at him. After the older brother catches the ball, Josuke claims he'll win if the ball contains the poisonous gas. The elder brother attempts to poison Josuke, but it turns out that Josuke placed his bubbles inside the ball, and they now contain the poisonous gas. The big brother suspects that this is Josefumi with the stand ability of Kira. Karira then lights a wick out of her hair to set the older brother ablaze.
The brothers run towards each other, but that's when Josuke's bubbles pop, spreading the poisonous gas onto both of them. With the brothers dead, Karira announces that she wants the Rokakaka fruit for herself, since it's worth a lot of money. Josuke wants to question her further, but she leaves before he can do so. We then find out that her stand name is Love Love Deluxe. And the two dead brothers were called the Aphex brothers, and they were twins. In 1938, a plant called the Rokakaka was discovered by the Australians. Even for the natives, the fruit was exceptionally rare. Infertile women who ate the fruit became pregnant. But sand would come out of their breast, and their teeth would turn to stone. Eventually, after some time, reports of the Rokakaka disappeared, and it became urban legend. In the now, Yasuo thinks that someone knows the location of the Rokakaka fruit. Josuke reveals to Yasuho that he might be Josefumi. Yasuho looks up Josefumi's address as she wonders where Josuke went yesterday. Joshu interrupts Josuke, wondering where his dad and brother are. Hado then brings over her first ever boyfriend. Norisuke is a bit flabbergasted by his ugly appearance. The man's name is Tamaki Damo, and he manages a dry cleaning store. Hado introduces Tamaki to her family. Tamaki begins to greet them, but then Joshu rips off his glasses, saying that it's disrespectful not to take them off when you greet someone for the first time. This then reveals Tamaki's bald spot. Joshu hands him back his glasses as Tamaki offers the family a dessert. Kyo notices some odd fingerprints on the door handle, as does Norisuke on the dessert box. Norisuke asks how long they've been seeing each other. Hado casually mentions that they've had sex 2 times, as the rest of the family is shocked to hear this. We then see the fingerprints on Joshu's hand and bracelet. Tamaki breaks a chair when he sits down in it. When Joshu opens up the champagne bottle, the cork knocks off Tamaki's toupee. Joshu apologizes. He then notices that his bracelet fell off. Josuke still has Yasuho on the phone. She found a photo of Josefumi, and she's gonna send it to him via a fax. Tamaki mentions that his dry cleaner is located at the back of the train station. Hado mentions that she was doing a photo shoot where her necklace broke off. Tamaki arrived and reassembled the entire necklace for her. In fact, when he did so, he wrote the letters, "I love you," into the necklace. Josuke and Tamaki then excuse themselves. Josuke looks for Kyo under Norisuke's suggestion. When he enters the other room, he finds a myriad of handprints all over the place. It appears that Kyo even slipped into the walls. Joshu then tracks Tamaki, finding that the security equipment had been tampered with. The fax for Josefumi comes through with a picture of Tamaki's face on it. Joshu's hand then gets caught into the handles of the cabinet. He attempts to escape, but then he hits his head on a nearby faucet as he begins to drain into the sink. Daya sees the name and the face on the fax, and she attempts to conceal it from Norisuke and her older sister. Hado wants to get a closer look, but Daya rushes over to Josuke. Unfortunately, she falls and gets trapped into the floor. Josuke wonders what happened in his past as Daya melts into the floor. Tamaki then asks Hado to retrieve the fax that Daya was carrying. Norisuke drinks some champagne, which causes a weird distortion in his skin. Tamaki informs Norisuke that he entered his home to solve 3 problems at once. Tamaki is looking for 4 people: an architect, twin brothers, and a security guard. Sounds rather familiar. Tamaki makes Norisuke's body melt with a stand, vitamin C. Tamaki suspects that the culprit for these 4 missing people is in his house, and they will thusly be killed. Tamaki states that Norisuke was close to Kira. He then states it all started with flying fish. 2 years prior, we see Yoshikage Kira on a ship, and he is 27 years old at this point in time. A man gets injured by the flying fish, but Kira was more interested in a rock that looked like a man and was bleeding. Afterwards, Kira finds out that the Higashikata fruit parlor ordered the rocks for an artificial garden. They've also imported some sort of fruit tree, and they've done this several times. At port, Kira berates Ojiro for being a surfer. Are you a man of the sea or a man of the land? Which is it? Be decisive. You all remember Ojiro from the first few chapters, right? As Ojiro runs away, he knocks the pepper out of a customer's hand. Kira spots Aisho, deducing that he's a rock human and he's connected with the Higashikata fruit parlor. Josefumi then extracts the pepper from his soup and resumes eating. Kira recognizes the boy as we go back to the present. Josuke tells Hado they're under attack. Josuke claims that Tamaki's attempting to kill the entire family. Josuke then throws a flower pot at the window, but it doesn't work. His skin then begins to melt. We then go back to the past again, even further this time, to Kiyomi Kujo. She's a woman who went to the beach instead of going to her job, and she was henceforth fired. All of a sudden, her son, Josefumi, then begins to drown in the water. Kiyomi hides at first and has reservations about saving him. Despite this though, she goes into the water to save her son. Josefumi is sent to the hospital, where Holly says his occipital bone was crushed. Kira is then called over by Holly, his mom, to look for a blood clot. Kira summons his stand, Killer Queen, to save Josefumi's life. However, Kiyomi has mixed feelings when she hears that her son was saved. A former baseball star buys the Rokakaka fruit from Aisho. Aisho informs him about the equivalent exchange, as the baseball player consumes the fruit expeditiously. Iwakira's shoulder fully heals after eating the fruit. Kira determines that the fruit comes from New Guinea, and Aisho only sells it to a select few people with an abundance of cash. "I'm gonna steal one of them," says Kira. Josefumi determines that Kira wants to steal the fruit for his sick mother, but he agrees to help nonetheless. Josefumi, however, doesn't want to steal the fruit, but the branches from the tree, so they can graft it onto another tree and grow the fruit for themselves. In the meantime, Iwakira's mouth turns to rock and sand. Josefumi and Kira then trail Aisho. Aisho uses some eye medication as Josefumi approaches him from behind. Killer Queen then causes a motorcycle accident in the street. Josefumi then opens up the briefcase to steal some branches. He reattaches some random branches so Aisho wouldn't notice that they were missing. The soft and wet bubbles also block Aisho's eyesight so he doesn't see Josefumi. Kira and Josefumi then leave, having completed their mission. In the now, Tamaki taunts Norisuke. Because of the changes in the terrain, Yotsuyu had a difficult time finding the Rokakaka on the Higashikata property. "Are you the one who killed Yotsuyu?" questions Tamaki. Norisuke's arm is sliced off by Tamaki. Norisuke admits to killing Yotsuyu. However, Tamaki presses further, wondering who really killed Yotsuyu. In the past again, Josefumi meets with Holly Joestar, although she doesn't recognize him. This is because Holly's memory is slowly deteriorating. On a sailboat, Josefumi says they'll be able to harvest 2 fruit from the branches. The two notice Karira on the pier, noting that she has a stand ability involving hair. Josefumi looks to anchor the sailboat, but then he notices fingerprints on the rope. Kira then notices Tamaki and Yotsuyu in the cabin of the boat. Tamaki states that they always weigh the fruit before and after a transaction. The tree was off by 9 grams, and after 6 months, the tree had wilted, since it had been replaced with different branches. Tamaki searched all the sick and injured people in Japan, figuring that they wanted to use the fruit for themselves, and they eventually narrowed down their search to Holly Joestar, which is why they're tracking Kira today. Killer Queen attempts to attack, but vitamin C softens him up. With the 2 boys subdued, Tamaki begins his interrogation. Tamaki starts torturing the 2. He then chucks Josefumi's cell phone at his face. Tamaki then offers them a choice. He's only going to kill one of them if the other will reveal where the fruit is. Tamaki pushes a piece of currency through Josefumi's head. The boy thinks of how his mother nearly drowned him as a child. Kira urges Josefumi to get moving without him. Kira then threatens to kill the 2 and steal all the fruit for himself. Tamaki thinks Kira is bluffing by stating he's got comrades coming. Just then, Karira pops in, to the surprise of Tamaki. Yotsuyu's stand then mounts Karira, you know, doggy style.
It's about to come, it's about to come, it's about to come.
Surprisingly, Karira has Josefumi's phone in her hand. Kira then apologizes for roping Josefumi in this mess. We then find out that Kira's stand is hidden in Karira's hair, as the boat explodes in an instant. Tamaki and Yotsuyu are injured and disoriented from the explosion. Josefumi carries Kira's body away from the wreckage. Josefumi admits he was close to revealing the location of the fruit, apologizing to Kira in the process. He brings Kira to the fruit, hoping it will heal his wounds. He grabs the fruit and puts it in front of Kira's mouth. Meanwhile, Tamaki is resolute in killing Kira and Josefumi. He instructs Yotsuyu to call Aisho and the twin brothers to flush them out. Because Tamaki gouged out much of Kira's liver, he determines that they might be going to the fruit here and now. Karira hears all this information while hiding in the water. Josefumi urges Kira to eat the fruit, but he's unresponsive, likely dead at this point. Josefumi then decides to use Soft and Wet's bubbles to feed Kira the fruit, by force. Josuke's body melts at a rapid rate.
Josuke then asks Hado if she would mind if he killed Tamaki. If anyone else touches the fingerprints, they begin to melt, and the entire Higashikata house is covered with them. I want to move forward. Hado-chan, please give me your permission. In the past again, Kira's wound seals up. Unfortunately, Josufumi's ear turns to stone and falls off. Yotsuyu mentions that the shaking is pretty strong from the aftershock. There's also a tsunami on the way. Josufumi finds metal shards in the back of Kira's head, causing him to cry. The Aphex brothers show up and call Yotsuyu to confirm the location of the fruit. Josufumi easily smashes the younger brother, with the elder brother intervening, but it's not long before he pummels them both with soft and wet. Josufumi has always wanted to be useful to Holly for saving his life. Though he can't make that happen right now, he uses his second fruits on Kira via his bubbles. Josufumi says he quote-unquote died at the beach long ago, and he'll happily exchange his life for Kira's. Josufumi instructs Kira to grow the other fruit for Holly. Elsewhere, Norisuke notices that the aftershocks are making the walleyes lift up even more. They thusly head inside the house. The earthquake makes the ground unstable, creating a crevice that Josufumi and Kira fall into. Meanwhile, a stray dog picks up the fruit. We then see the two lying underground in an unconscious state. In the now, Tamaki throws a fish inside Norisuke's body. When it swims, it causes him immense pain. Tamaki demands to know where Josufumi is, but Norisuke doesn't know anybody by that name. Tamaki threatens him by saying he'll slaughter his entire family. Tamaki then calls over Hado-chan. Josuke warns Hado that Tamaki is planning to kill her. Norisuke pleads with Tamaki to spare his family and to kill him instead. I'm sorry, Josuke. I can't protect you. Norisuke deduces that Josufumi is most likely Josuke, which surprises Tamaki. Tamaki doesn't necessarily believe him, since his face and physical characteristics are different from Josufumi. Norisuke states that Josuke didn't have any memories, and there was an equivalent exchange involved. Hado enters the room as Tamaki uses vitamin C to melt her body. Tamaki stares at Josuke, realizing that this is Josufumi. Josufumi fused with the parts of Kira, thanks to the exchange phenomena of the Rokakaka. Josuke attacks with soft and wet, but he's melted by vitamin C. A bubble then breaks Tamaki's glasses. With Josuke's body melted, Tamaki cuts out his liver again, just like he did in the past. He looks to slit Josuke's throat, but then he sees Hado outside the house, in one of Josuke's bubbles. Hado proceeds to impale Tamaki's neck with a stretched heel on her boot. She continues gashing into him, splattering blood everywhere. Tamaki pleads with Hado, saying he wasn't gonna hurt her family, he just wanted Josufumi. She then summons her stand and walks up the side of the house. Josuke instructs Tamaki to flee, otherwise Hado will defeat him. Tamaki then contemplates Josuke's equivalent exchange, a phenomenon he hasn't seen before. He realizes that an exchange with someone else could gather a huge amount of interest from the wealthy community. Tamaki thusly wants to eliminate Hado and get the fruit for himself. Tamaki grabs Norisuke and a lighter. He lights him on fire and puts him inside the chimney. The flame also contains his fingerprints. Despite this, the stretched out heel goes through the roof and through Tamaki's head. Tamaki then finds soap bubbles on his person, which gave away his location to Hado. The heartbroken Hado proceeds to impale Tamaki's head several more times. After this happens, everyone's body returns to normal. Despite this, Tamaki still has enough strength to run away. Josuke confronts him outside. Tamaki attempts to bargain with Josuke to spare his life, but Soft and Wet smashes him to pieces. My identity is Josufumi and Kira. I'm Josufumi Kujo. Jobin witnesses the event from his car and is visibly upset that Tamaki was killed. Meanwhile, at the Stone Ocean prison, a woman is given her items back with compensation for all the work she did in the past couple of years. The prison staff is gonna miss her. The mysterious woman then pulls out her phone from a deck of cards. She calls someone on the phone and says that she wants to meet Norisuke, but she wants it to be a surprise. I don't have any regrets, but that's because I'm gonna take back the life I lost. It's then revealed that this is Kato Higashikata, and she was talking to her son, Jobin. Meanwhile, Joshu climbs out of the sewer. Joshu then goes to a store, prepared to purchase items from his favorite idol. A man then skips ahead of him in line and leaves his wallet on the counter. The man then returns to the counter looking for his wallet, but Joshu takes off and goes to the bathroom. Since he knows the man is a fan of Rina, he determines his PIN number and henceforth withdraws 500,000 yen from his bank account, which is everything. Joshu tosses the man's cash card and blames him for leaving his wallet at the register, effectively absolving himself of any guilt. He then attempts to buy a watch with the money, but the shop owner says there's a scratch on it and they'll order him a new one. When they return Joshu's money, he discovers they gave him 10,000 yen too much. Joshu then buys 9 seats at the movie theater to watch a Johnny Depp pirate movie.
It's a key. No. Much more better. It is a drawing of a key.
Joshu then wins a Johnny Depp figure in a movie lottery, and he henceforth sells it to a desperate man. Joshu then finds a hair in a meal at an exquisite restaurant. The meal is comped, and he's given compensation for the mistake. He then tosses a breadcrumb into a woman's cleavage, and proceeds to order golden champagne and sing karaoke. Turns out the 10 bottles of Gold Dust champagne cost 540,000 yen, but the man wants to know where he got the money from. The owner then asks him if he met the Milagro man. He gives Joshu the money back with interest and tells him to leave. The bodyguards look to rough him up in the elevator, but Joshu uses his stand to put screws into them. Joshu is then confused as to why he keeps getting more and more money. He then finds a bag full of money inside of his backpack. Joshu then wonders who the Milagro man is, as he's nervously excited about all the money he's accumulated, though he just attributes everything to luck. After buying a soda in a soda machine, he receives more money than he spent, making him even more confused. Joshu receives extra change at every vending machine he uses. Joshu ponders his situation, determining that the bills aren't fake. He then bets on an online boat race, winning 3.1 million yen in the process. Joshu inspects his bills, discovering that the serial numbers all end in 13. Joshu shoves his money in a locker, but then it falls out and flies away. The people in the area pick up the cash and hand it to him. He ends up with more cash again. After taking a taxi, Joshu and the driver try to force the money onto each other. Joshu puts the money in the driver's pocket, but it starts on fire and begins to grow. Norisuke shakes Joshu awake. The boy wonders if it was all just a dream. He opens his bedroom, however, and it explodes with cash. Joshu then confronts Zaihei, the owner of the wallet he originally stole. Zaihei then explains the Milagro curse. He originally stole a bill from a homeless man, and soon noticed that the money continued to increase, no matter what he did. It turns out that the homeless man was only pretending to be homeless, and was waiting for someone to steal his money and take the curse from him. Zaihei left his wallet behind on purpose so he could pass the Milagro curse on to someone else, and it just so happened to be Joshu. The original source of the Milagro man was an arms dealer who profited off of war, but he lost a prolonged lawsuit and ended up paying $50 billion in the process. After killing his family and himself, a single bill was left behind that changes form and follows individuals until you pass it on to someone else. To clarify, you must pass it on and have that individual destroy them. Otherwise, you'll never be able to buy anything ever again, and you'll be stuck with the curse for the rest of your life. Every purchase adds more money to the pile and slowly drives you insane. Joshu attaches a screw to Zaihei's bottle, causing him to accidentally destroy the bills and accept the curse back once again. Josuke remarks how Tamaki stole his identity, but now he's done away with that rock human. Those fruit they sought, and they monopolized control of the Rokakaka, and the equivalent exchange the Rokakaka brings about. Josuke yells at doctors, wondering why Holly is strapped to her bed in a freezing cold room. Josuke claims to be her son, and the doctor explains that her medical expenses have gone unpaid. The doctor says that Holly ate her own fingers since she can't distinguish them between food. They were able to reattach the fingers, but there's no cure for her illness. Plus, expenses are 120,000 yen per night. Josuke then has an emotional moment. If any other bad things happen to Holly-san, whatever the reason, I won't forgive it. She's someone who should be happy. Josuke needs the Rokakaka fruit and money to make his dreams a reality. Norisuke looks for a DVD from an exercise guru on the couch. He then realizes his wife is sitting on the couch. It's been quite a while, hasn't it? The children wonder who this strange woman is. Kato makes condescending remarks to all her children, as Hato seems to be the only child who knows who she is. Hato tells Josuke she was only 9 years old at the time that it happened. That's our mother. She was in prison.
Kato claims she didn't do anything wrong, and that Norisuke abandoned her. Daya tells Josuke that Kato was found guilty of murdering someone's child. Kato then looks to hug Daya, but Joshu pushes a chair in front of her, making her trip. Joshu then tricks her with his stand ability, causing her dress to fall down. Are you really our mom? Why don't you let me suckle a bit? It's not too late, come on! Kato asks Joshu to help her pick up her cards, which causes a chair leg to go into his chin. Kato remarks that she always thought of her family. Jobin then reveals that he was the one who let Mom inside the house. I want to ride that cool bike, yells Josuke. Norisuke hops on the bike, yet Josuke wants him to look at the security footage from this morning. In the footage, there's a dark, shadowy figure lurking in the forest in the backyard. Based on Norisuke's research, he determined that Tamaki was the boss, and he only had 4 allies. Josuke explains they needed to import the fruit and hide all the revenue. Josuke then brightens the picture, revealing Jobin's face. Jobin knows about the graft, and he was business partners with Tamaki. In fact, he helped import the fruit into Japan. Because the walleyes cause the ground to move, they can't determine the grafted branch from the regular ones. However, Josuke is determined to find it for Hali-san's sake. Norisuke decides to help Josuke. He tells him about a plant appraiser that only he knows about. This person can tell the difference between a regular branch and a grafted one. Norisuke cautions Josuke not to tell Jobin about this. You need the right path for the equivalent exchange. Meanwhile, Kato is sitting on a hammock in Norisuke's garden. Norisuke is appalled by Kato's past actions, and he's not giving her a thing. Kato calls Jobin, informing him that Josuke's got a cell phone, and he's most likely planning to meet someone with it. Jobin arrives at a shrine, puts some gloves on, and then tosses some fried chicken at it. A rock human emerges from the ground. Jobin hands over the fried chicken and informs him that Tamaki and the others are dead. So, the favor I want to ask is... Josuke receives a letter from a small boy. In the light, Josuke notices a tooth stain on the envelope. Josuke determines it's not safe to open, but the little boy approaches him once more. In the past, an unknown man attempted to save his girlfriend from touching a generator, but he accidentally touched it himself and was left in a burnt state. In the now, the man informs Jobin he's got no interest in earning and laundering money with the Rokakaka fruit. Jobin explains the equivalent exchange that happened with Kira and Josefumi, creating Josuke. Dolomite reveals his stand, suddenly interested in obtaining the fruit. Josuke asks the boy who gave him the letter. Mysteriously, the boy begins smashing his face. This goes on for a while, making Josuke extremely concerned. The boy pursues Josuke, but a motorist gets in the way. The boy starts smashing his head against a window, as Josuke suspects that this has something to do with the letter. Josuke realizes that the boy is being controlled as it climbs through the window of a lady's car. Soft and Wet catches a coffee with one of its bubbles and tosses it at the boy. Josuke saves the lady as the boy continues his pursuit. The boy then collapses from exhaustion. Josuke then recovers a tooth with a bubble, wondering if Tamaki has other allies. Josuke wonders what the meaning of this attack was. He then wonders if they're after the fruit appraiser, as the female driver now begins to chase him like a wild beast. Dolomite smashes his mouth against a rock. Jobin announces that he needs to find the person that Josuke is after, so they can find the branch. Back to Josuke, the lady goes crazy as the boy wonders what happened to her. The lady falls down with Josuke asking if she's okay. The lady stands up, ferociously attacks Josuke, but hits her face against a metal box. Josuke then smacks her down with a trash lid, suspecting there's a user in the area. The lady is unrelenting, as her speed is getting faster. Josuke then pulls himself onto a steel grating as she smashes into a wall. She proceeds to go forward by repeatedly hitting her head into the wall, meaning her movement is linear. Unfortunately, she clenches on the Josuke's sneaker. Josuke slips out of his shoes, but she captures him nonetheless. Soft and Wet pummels her in the face, and then uses a shovel to smash her through a window. The woman attempts to break through the wall on the other side. Some young people inside the building decide to rob the lady. Josuke wonders how someone else found out about the plant appraiser. Josuke then calls Yasuho, informing her that someone is attacking him right now. He tells her about the tooth at the bus stop. He informs her not to touch it though, but to use Paisley Park to figure out whose tooth it is. A girl on the street starts acting weird, and an ominous man approaches him, but none of them are being controlled. Josuke, however, is in a precarious situation, since he doesn't know who's being controlled. This person is out of their mind. They're gonna make the whole town dissolve into chaos. a strange woman attacks him, so he proceeds to beat her down. The woman chases her like a zombie. In pursuit, she gets run over by a motorcycle. A muscular man takes up the chase, making Josuke feel as though he's being pushed off a cliff. The man collides with a fence, as Josuke uses his bubble to protect himself from the projectile blood. A boy then hit by the blood changes his demeanor. Josuke steals his bicycle and flees from the area. Josuke then suspects that these attacks could last for hours or even days. He thusly needs Yasuo to figure out who the stand user is so he can eliminate him. In the meantime, Yasuo uses her phone to inspect a tooth with Paisley Park. Paisley Park uses her powers to investigate the dental records. She reads a document that a human bit rabbits into pieces and consumed them whole. Another incident happened with 25 chickens. The police identified a suspect, Masaji Dorokomo, and his records match up with the tooth in the bubble. Yasuo notices there's dirt on the tooth, which means she can analyze the soil and determine who he is. Yasuo then feels a sudden rush of heat, passing out immediately. Jobin thinks this is Joshu's girlfriend. He figures she's working with Josuke and his dad. However, it would be bad for him to kill her, so he recovers the tooth and leaves. Jobin stomps on Yasuo's phone and says that the Rokakaka fruit is vital to the future success of the Higashikata fruit parlor. Yasuo recovers, quickly realizing that all the evidence was stolen from her. Josuke can't contact Yasuo as he gets the feeling that he's being tailed. The driver hits a bird, which contains the contaminated blood, altering the driver's state of mind. Josuke kicks the car door into the driver. Since the stand can infect anything, there seems to be no escape. Josuke enters a full sprint as a fly drinks the blood and begins to chase him down. Josuke enters a store and sprays some bug repellent on the fly. The fly continues buzzing around, so Josuke positions himself in a narrow hallway and gets ready to smack it with a can. Josuke then reasons that he could close the door on the fly and crush it to death. Unfortunately, Josuke sees a bloodied woman lying on the floor. He attempts to close the door, but the baby lodges itself in the opening. From the fly to the mom with the baby in the carriage, then she hit her head and it went into the baby's carriage. The baby looks fearsome. Disability! This stand! It has no weakness! The baby touches Josuke's foot, causing him to lose control of his body. He mindlessly walks to Dolomite at the pond. Dolomite questions Josuke's motives. Josuke confesses he was going to meet with the plant appraiser to find the Rokakaka branch. Dolomite looks at the image of the plant appraiser on Josuke's phone and instructs him to drown himself. Dolomite reminisces about the girl from his past as Yasuo whacks him on the back of the head. She instructs him to cancel his attack on Josuke, and once he does that, she wants to know who attacked her earlier. Dolomite turns to stone, so Yasuo pushes him into a mud pit. He turns back and admits that Jobin Higashikata was behind the attack, and he's keen on recovering the branch. Josuke emerges from the water. Dolomite says that Jobin is laundering money with his fruit imports. Dolomite also warns him about the dangers of the fruit. Tsurugi then chronicles the Higashikata curse. Narisuke's mom sacrificed herself in an equivalent exchange. The lifespan of the people they marry are extremely short. In the past, Kato ties Jobin's shoes as he goes off with his scouting group. Fellow scouts steal Jobin's money and physically abuse him. The boys find Kato's bra and pictures of her in the shower in Jobin's bag, which he did under the bully's instructions. A Girl Scout appears, so the bullies act as though everything is fine. Later on, the girl reports the boys to their parents and the police. Angered that his future is ruined, the bully instructs Jobin to light the girl's house on fire. Jobin is appalled and outright refuses. The bully beats Jobin, claiming he'll rape Kato and kill him if he plans on double-crossing him. The bully pours oil on Jobin and starts his lighter. Jobin's stand then boils the bully, causing him to have a stroke. Jobin goes to his mother for help. She places the bully's body in the trunk and reassures him that he didn't do anything wrong. It turns out that Jobin's memory is fleeting, causing him to forget the previous day's events. I can live for your sake. She remembers the legend of Johnny Joestar and the curse of this land. She instructs Jobin to take the bully's body and bury him behind the shrine, thus performing an equivalent exchange. When Jobin was 16, Narisuke wonders how he could be in such great health, given the Higashikata curse and all. In time, the bully's body was discovered.
DNA on the boy matched Kato's. They also found his DNA in the trunk of her car. She thusly served 15 years in prison for it. Josuke reflects on his conversation with Dolomite, particularly the claim that Jobin is just a gopher. He also alluded to the true goals of the people behind the fruit, but didn't elaborate any further on this. In fact, the reason he's alive is because he doesn't know anything about this mystery. Dolomite advises them to walk away now. He explains that the Rokakaka fruit has infinite value, and not having anyone know about them. Josuke realizes that Dolomite wasn't just talking to him back there. There was also somebody else. It's as if he was attempting to prove that he was ignorant about the fruit's secrets. I told Dolomite where I was going, and the smartphone was lying there with the screen on. Somebody heard it. The bus driver then stands up and collapses to the ground. The plant appraiser takes the wheel, but he's gonna need Josuke's protection since his identity has been compromised. So this is him, the plant appraiser. The appraiser has been in contact with Norisuke, but he hasn't said if he'll work with him on this yet. He then wonders why Josuke brought a girl with him. Josuke states that without Yasuo's help, he wouldn't have made it this far. The appraiser says they're being pursued right now. The bystanders on the bus wonder what's going on, as Josuke wonders where they are going. The appraiser doesn't want to reveal any information, since someone might be listening right now. The appraiser then clarifies Josuke's responsibilities. The priorities here are protecting me first, then your own life comes second. She's third. Those bangs of yours, did you perhaps cut them yourself?
Take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
The appraiser estimates their survival rates at 7.5% when they exit the bus. Yasuo erases everyone's phones on the bus with Paisley Park. Josuke questions the appraiser about the enemy. I know there's some dark enemy out there, one that slipped into society. As long as the fruit known as the Rokakaka exists, they'll do whatever it takes to get their hands on them. And you best not doubt my probabilities. The appraiser points at a tree, telling them they should practice recognizing them. The tree? It's not just one! What are those? The tree starts making its way to their location. The appraiser claims that this person attempted to attack his house, so they'll want to avoid setting foot on soil. Therefore, they move on concrete. The appraiser's name is Rai Mamazuku, and he's Norisuke's personal fruit grower. Josuke pulls out his phone, claiming he's taken photos of all the tree branches on the Higashikata estate. Could you appraise these and tell me which photo it is? After Rai identifies the branch, Josuke will go home and give him no further trouble. Rai identifies the branch and verifies it's still intact. Jobin can't find the branch, and collecting tissue from the branch would make it wilt. The only way to identify the branch is via Rai's expertise. If Norisuke wasn't backing Josuke, Rai wouldn't help him either. The three then board the chairlift, as Rai states that their survival rate has increased to 20%. Rai stops the chairlift at a pole and opens up a hidden kitchen. Rai then details the process of making a Romanoff, which is a great way to round off a tiramisu. Yasuo determines that Rai lives in the skylift to avoid unnecessary danger. Rai then reveals his stand, growing strings from his fingers to grab strawberries to complete his dish. By the way, Rai's stand is called doggy style, which allows him to turn his body into a wire or rope and extend it and snap it back. Yasuo and Josuke are stunned by the tastiness of the Romanoff. Rai then reveals a bathroom on pole 6, and the entire chairlift is his home. Rai states that he avoids using agrochemicals to maximize the sweetness and taste of his strawberries. That's insanely good! Rai believes that with the fruit, one could replace their entire body at the cellular level in just 2 hours. Rai speculates that the enemy wants to take the Rokakaka and convert it into technology, and more importantly, keep it for themselves. Therefore, they could create a new industry of immortality. Police officers find numerous trees surrounding the bus in the parking lot. Numerous holes develop on the officers' bodies in a mysterious fashion. Rai notices patrol cars, but no officers in the area. A tree then sneaks up on Yasuo, nearly whacking her off of the chairlift. When did the trees get so close? Rai sees purple and blue objects on the trees. The group determines that the enemy stand is attacking them from the branches. The stand opens up a hole in Rai's skin, entering into his body and decreasing their chance of survival to 7%. Josuke uses his bubbles to remove them from Yasuo's legs to destroy the tree. Rai uses a remote to start the chairlift. He then scolds Josuke for not protecting him first, as per their arrangement on the bus. Rai's body is being polluted by the enemy's stand, which leaves him with little recourse. Josuke-kun, promises are sacred. I've got no other choice. I'm abandoning my left hand. It can't be brought back to normal. Rai pushes Yasuo off of the chairlift.
leaving her unconscious on the ground.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they...
Josuke mentions how vital Rai is to harvesting the branch. Unfortunately though, there's a contingency that wants the branch for their own purposes, and thusly this group is after Josuke and Rai. Josuke wants to help Yasuho, but Rai states that they need to use her to flush out the enemy. Yasuho wakes up and reveals she's injured from the fall. Josuke instructs her to head to pole 6 and climb up. Yasuho makes a mad dash for the pole. Rai informs Josuke that if the enemy destroys the base for pole 6, he could take down the entire chairlift. Yasuho reaches pole 6, as the ground begins to shake violently. The stand user proceeds to chase Yasuho as she jumps onto Josuke's bubbles to avoid danger. Several rocks pop the bubbles, as Yasuho comes face to face with the stand user. The man grabs her neck and unleashes his stand on her face. Rai tosses a knife at the stand user. Rai then uses his stand ability to cut across the chest of the stand user. Yasuho proceeds to run away and climb up the pole for safety. Paisley Park then activates the shower in pole 6, which washes away the user's stand. The enemies are rock humans, and there's 2 of them. We then find out that one of the stand users is named Urban Gorilla, and his stand is called Brainstorm. And the stand that he's riding is Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do.
Do Re Mi Fa Sol.
The chairlift collapses, sending Rai and Josuke to the ground. The 2 rock humans then emerge from the ground. Rai clarifies that Do-Re-Mi seems more like a pet rock animal more than anything else. Urban Gorilla threatens to rip off Rai's limbs. Urban Gorilla wonders whom he should kill first, as Rai throws a knife in his direction. The knife gashes into his leg, so the 2 rock humans dive underground. Rai determines that the pet utilizes caterpillar propulsion, a process that takes in the soil and minimizes the amount of surface level vibrations. Josuke and Rai make their way to the 7th pole, where the fuel is located. Josuke worries about protecting Yasuho again, with Rai reminding him about his promise. Josuke jumps off nonetheless, making his way towards Yasuho. I've changed my opinion of him somewhat. When all is said and done, Josuke-kun is a man I can count on. Paisley Park locates a bedrock on the map, which they could use to slow down the enemy. Do-Re-Mi emerges from the ground as Josuke prepares soft and wet for a counterattack. The bubbles have no effect as Josuke's shoes are getting pulverized. Josuke uses his belt to capture his bubbles and float above the enemy. Josuke grabs Yasuho's hand to protect her as the 2 have a momentary glance at one another. The 2 resume running with Josuke's leg getting torn up. They reach a large rock, but they need to keep looking for a higher area for safety. Meanwhile, Rai swings his way over to pole 7. Unfortunately, Urban Gorilla is already there waiting for him. "You'll be my first victim," states the rock human. Rai's whole body is then covered with Brainstorm. To give a brief explanation of Brainstorm, first, they grab onto the surface of the skin with their feelers. They break through the skin and extend their feelers inside. They themselves are the toxins, and they cause hemolysis, the breakdown of red blood cells. They then enter deeper and begin to double and double again, multiplying their numbers exponentially. Then the target's body starts to break down, as if the holes are being dug into. Yasuho blames herself for all the bad things that are happening to Rai. Urban Gorilla is hopeful in healing the disease and earning money from the Rokakaka. Apparently, the Rokakaka is not meant for humans, due to the differences of carbon-based life and silicon-based life. With the new Rokakaka, the rock humans will claim the top spot in the hierarchical structure of society. Rai proceeds to unravel his arms into a makeshift slingshot. He then fires at the rock human's eye, shattering the glass on his goggles. Brainstorm rips Rai to shreds, but he manages to fire another rock at Urban Gorilla. The rock human uses the pole as a shield as Rai collapses to the ground. Do-Re-Mi blocks Josuke's access to Rai, but he's unconcerned, saying he'll take some damage if need be. Yasuho worries about Josuke as he leaps off the rock. Urban Gorilla deploys Brainstorm into the nearby soil, creating a multitude of holes so he can dive beneath the soil and meet up with his partner once again. "I'm a rock human. I'm above all of you." Josuke then sinks below the soil, with Yasuho watching on in a nervous fashion. "Josuke!" Brainstorm rips holes into Josuke's body. "Your body is falling apart. It's too bad, really. Yoshikage Kira was right. Damo Tamaki and his men only used the lust for the Rokakaka to make money. They were nothing but drug dealers." Josuke determines that Urban Gorilla was a doctor. Rai utilizes his stand to funnel gasoline from the pole to Urban Gorilla's location. "Dive!" yells Urban Gorilla. It's then revealed that Josuke's soap bubbles contain the gasoline, and with the help of Rai's lighter, they scorch the two rock humans. Josuke wants to question them further, but Rai doesn't wish to put his life in any further danger. Yasuo embraces Josuke as the rock humans perish. Josuke thinks about the fact that Urban Gorilla was a doctor. Yoshikage Kira was a ship doctor. Holly-san is a doctor too, and she's fighting against illness right now. Is there something connecting all of this somewhere? Rai inspects Josuke's bubbles. A line is vibrating at a super high speed, making it appear as a sphere. Huh. His ability is Cord. Rai has identified the Rokakaka branch from the photos that Josuke took, and with the help of Pull 8, he's gonna harvest it. Inside Tube 8, they're specimens of moth larvae, and they were raised for harvesting the fruit. They'll burrow into the vascular bundles under the branch bark. Then a new Rokakaka fruit will grow on that branch before winter passes. Jobin meets with an old man that looks like a child in a parking lot. This individual's name is Poor Tom. Poor Tom then thinks a girl across the parking lot is flaunting her assets at him on purpose. Jobin clarifies that he can't help Poor Tom with money laundering like he did for Tamaki. Poor Tom reports that Urban Gorilla and his pet are missing, and without the plant appraiser, they'll be unable to locate the branch. So, we're gonna close off the entire Higashikata Estate's orchard. Poor Tom's stand, Ozone Baby, will block the area around the branch, preventing anyone from recovering it. Poor Tom wants Jobin to bury his stand in the Higashikata estate, so it will take effect. With Jobin doing this, instead of Poor Tom, it will only affect Josuke and the plant appraiser, and leave the Higashikata family out of this. The woman from earlier drops her phone number out of the car for Poor Tom, confirming his suspicion that she was hitting on him. Rai recognizes Yasuo's usefulness, but he urges her to go home and to stay out of this from this point forward. Yasuo is then reminded of a situation when she was 13 years old, when she bought a hair braid. She explains to her mother that it was made in China and eventually ended up in the hands of a Taiwanese girl. Her mother scolds her for spending so much money on a hair braid, as we find out that Yasuo's parents were divorced when she was 10 years old. At school, Yasuo forgets to buy her friend a birthday present, and at home, her hair is littered with dandruff. She then notices that even her skin is flaking off. After using medication, her skin returns to normal the next morning. Unfortunately, she can't find her hair clip. Tears stream down her eyes as she begins to panic. She then accuses her mother of being jealous and stealing the hair clip to prevent her divorced husband from seeing it. "You're always bad-mouthing Dad." The mother touches her hand as it flakes off, causing Yasuo to collapse to the ground. The hair braid stand then jumps into Yasuo's hair and bores into her scalp, causing the flaking. Yasuo then wakes up as her father takes care of her. Her dad likes the new hair braid. He then indicates he won't be able to see her on Sundays anymore, since he wants to start a new family with his girlfriend and spend more time with them. Her father then flakes off into tiny pieces. It turns out that this was not Yasuo's father, but a mere construct that was formed by the stand. Yasuo's mother comes home to find her daughter in the bathtub with her wrist slit. In the now, Yasuo's not sure why she saved Josuke's life back then. While recovering in the hospital, Holly Joestar says, "It's self-evident that there's not a single thing that is good to overlook." Kira remarks that Holly won't be a doctor anymore after this, as he shows Yasuo her hair clip. He proceeds to crush it with his foot, and claims it's a fake. In the present, Yasuo tells Rai she has the same motives as Josuke, and wants to get her hands on the Rokakaka for Holly's sake. Rai permits her to come along, and even notes that the hair clip was probably a rock pet. Elsewhere, Jobin buries Ozone Baby in the Higashikata estate. The current time until harvest of the Rokakaka fruit is 12 days, 4 hours, and 33 minutes. At the Higashikata house, Jobin measures fish sausages with a ruler, thinking they're smaller than they used to be. In fact, Joshu has been meticulously weighing and measuring each sausage to determine if it's really a value pack, as the package claims. Unfortunately for him, Daya and Hato begin eating the sausages. In the past, Jobin complains to his dad about the seats at a baseball game, and the fact they couldn't book a reservation at a distinguished Italian restaurant. With the fruit parlor playing a prominent role in Morio, he believes they should be offered more privileges, but it seems they're losing power. Jobin suggests that they start importing olive oil, supplements, and processed fruit goods to up their game. Norisuke outright refuses, claiming a fruit shop need not be powerful. After Norisuke leaves, Yotsuyu introduces himself to Jobin. Yotsuyu has accepted the position of designing the Higashikata estate, and invites Jobin over to taste some imported wine. In the now, Jobin turns off the security cameras so he can bury Ozone Baby without being noticed by anyone. The time to harvest is now 12 days, 2 hours, and 11 minutes. Rai and Josuke arrive at the Higashikata estate through an underground passageway. Rai tells Josuke that Yasuo went home to analyze the remains of her hairpin to determine what kind of creature it is. Perhaps it will lead towards the identity of the rock humans. Rai and Josuke peek outside. The plant appraiser identifies the Rokakaka branch, instructing Josuke not to forget the spot. Rai activates doggy style and places the larva on the branch. 2 nights. A full 2 days from now, we'll come back and harvest it. The two are going to lay low for the next 2 days, meaning they won't report their activities to even Norisuke. Jobin is not sure what abilities poor Tom's stand have, but if Josuke or the plant appraiser get within its range, they'll die. Jobin wonders, however, how poor Tom plans on attaining the branch without the expertise of the plant appraiser. With 12 days, 2 hours, and 2 minutes left until harvest, Tsurugi asks his dad what he buried into the ground. Jobin is angry that his son was watching him. Jobin explains that when he was just a bit older than Tsurugi is now, Kato helped him get better, and if Tsurugi gets sick, Jobin will be the one to cure him. That is why I buried that thing, so be absolutely sure not to go near it. You were friends with Yotsuyu before. Did you do something bad, Daddy? Suddenly, their ears hurt and their noses begin to bleed. Jobin notices that all the plastic containers are getting crushed. Ozone Baby causes the dog to bleed profusely. The same happens to Tsurugi as the boy collapses to the ground. Jobin worries about his son as blood ejects from every orifice of his body. Poor Tom! This ability of his is insane! He has no way of choosing a target or discriminating who it hits at all. Jobin attempts to reach his son, but he also falls to the ground. Jobin deduces that the current attack was minor while in the shed. The symptoms, however, got progressively worse when they left, which means they need to get back inside. Jobin grabs his son. He then activates Speed King to drive the car backwards so he can fling himself back into the room. Once inside, Jobin determines that the air inside the room is pressurized, and when they go outside, they underwent sudden decompression, making their current predicament undesirable. At the same time, Josuke and Rai experience the same set of symptoms. Tsurugi went outside before his dad, so his decompression sickness is much worse. Ozone Baby enters the room with Speed King throwing a flurry of punches. The decompression starts once again, so Jobin constructs a makeshift oxygen tank out of sodium chlorate and heat to help his son. The air in this closed-off shed is getting pressurized again. Ozone Baby! That form is an illusion of the enemy! Jobin reveals that he buried the stand in the soil of the orchard. Tsurugi is surprised by this revelation, but his dad states that his aspirations for the Higashikata Fruit Company vary greatly from Norisuke's. The only bad thing is defeat. I'm gonna get my hands on that Rokakaka, and I'll keep them all for myself. I'm not letting anyone else have them, and one way or another, I'll eventually kill poor Tom. Jobin now wants to use Josuke to gain his victory. Daya and Hato open the door, precipitating the decompression sickness. With the pressure gradually going up, they'll be at life-threatening levels in just a few minutes. Since this is a long-range attack, poor Tom is likely far away from their grasp. Meanwhile, poor Tom is giving oral sex to the female from the parking lot. He receives a call from Jobin and looks at the images of the orchard on fire. Panicked, poor Tom leaves the woman's room. This event was caused by Tsurugi's Paper Moon stand and Jobin's Speed King stand. Jobin's hoping that the threat of destroying the branch will stimulate all interested parties into action. Tsurugi creates a fire truck origami, which Speed King ignites, accelerating the burning of the orchard. Nevertheless, Jobin is counting on the fact that Josuke is somewhere around the orchard, which will stimulate a move from him. I'm confident we're walking the path of righteousness, so I'm certain we'll win in the end. Meanwhile, Rai instructs Josuke to close the door. Much like Jobin, they determine that this is a pressurized attack. Josuke proceeds to look outside, seeing the entire orchard ablaze. Rai confirms that the branch is still intact, but the flames are quickly approaching it. Josuke contemplates the enemy's stand attack and the orchard being on fire, thinking that something is not adding up. The increasing pressure is taking its toll on Jobin and Tsurugi. Jobin reassures him that the dog is probably fine if he turned himself into a stone. Tsurugi starts making a crane origami. Meanwhile, Josuke enters one of his bubbles, planning on collecting the Rokakaka branch from harm's way. Though this plan is risky, since he'll be giving away the location of the Rokakaka branch, he can't take the chance of it getting destroyed. No matter what it takes, I can't let the enemy get the Rokakaka or let it burn. Rai doesn't like the plan, stating that if the bubble pops, he'll be dead. That branch is a demon plant. There's no human who can tame it, so I'll go collect it. Rai traverses the scorched orchard, as Jobin and Tsurugi watch on, with the crane origami serving as their eyes. Jobin is pleased to see that the plant appraiser is in the bubble, since this is playing perfectly into his plans. Rai reaches for the branch, but then suddenly stops and motions his hand to the side. What's he doing? The flames are getting to the branch! Rai stares at poor Tom in the bushes, holding his Lego house. Jobin is shocked to see poor Tom in the orchard. Rai then uses his wire-like hands to stretch out and grab the branch and poor Tom's face at the same time. So that's the branch, eh? Got it. And so does everybody else.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH, country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute.
When Rai was a child, his parents grew prized pears, which would sell for big money. Unfortunately, a rival competitor ruined their orchard, forcing them to sell the orchard off. Rai could never forgive his parents for their error, so he decided to live alone on the ski slope. He henceforth cultivated strawberries on the plateau. The Higashikata fruit parlor bought the fruit, and Rai exclusively cultivated the fruit for Norisuke. Inside the house, Norisuke wonders what's happening to Rai. Jobin points out the plant appraiser and Josuke to Tsurugi on the phone. Poor Tom's neck is tied up by Rai's wire, yet he formally declares that he'll get his hands on the Rokakaka branch. Poor Tom increases the pressure on Rai with immediate effect. The rock human plans on crushing Rai's insides with pressure. Josuke uses his soft and wet bubbles to send several U seeds to poor Tom. Turns out that these seeds are extremely poisonous. Josuke pops the bubble. Rai releases the branch for just a moment to grab the seeds and force them into poor Tom's mouth. Rai explains that the U-seeds can cause extreme hypertension, convulsions, and tear up the internal organs. Poor Tom pulls out a knife, but Rai knocks it out of his hand. Will I be crushed by the pressure first, or will the poison get to your heart first? Poor Tom uses the sheath of the knife to capture the wires and add more pressure to Rai. The fruit appraiser's body is torn to shreds by the pressure. I've won! Fuck you, asshole! Josuke starts to feel the heightened pressure as poor Tom grabs the branch and runs away. While escaping, poor Tom thinks about boarding the ambulance to counteract the poison. He then thinks the ambulance and the fire truck are possible comrades. Josuke continues his pursuit. He thinks of Holly and Rai as he launches a soap bubble with multiple soap bubbles inside. The bubble pops one layer at a time as it chases Tom down. Poor Tom raises the branch like a baseball bat in fear. The rock human is in total panic, puking from the poison. Poor Tom attempts to bribe Josuke with money as the bubble quickly approaches. Out of desperation, Tom cancels his stand, causing the bubble to pop on a nearby tree. Nothing was in it at all. He tricked me! Poor Tom then realizes the gravity of his situation. Poor Tom makes for the ambulance in a mad dash, thinking his comrades must be inside. Poor Tom holds onto the branch, but he's subsequently shot through the back of the head. An attack? No way, says Josuke. A mysterious person grabs the branch from behind the ambulance door, and henceforth drives off with it. Josuke gives chase, yet he trips on a rock in the process. They took the Rokakaka branch. Norisuke tells Tsurugi they were attacked by the rock humans. He then wonders where Jobin is. Tsurugi worries about his illness with the branch being stolen, but Norisuke tells him not to worry. Norisuke runs off as Jobin shows up where the cactus once was. It turns out that Tsurugi was using his stand ability, Paper Moon, to disguise Jobin as the cactus. Let's savor this victory, says Jobin with the branch in hand. You and I defeated everyone. Inside the ambulance, The unknown person determines that this is not the Rokakaka branch. He deduces that whoever lit the fire has the real branch. Jobin plans to cultivate the branch. They fuse it with a cactus, thinking they can grow a fruit in as little as 14 days. Jobin implores Tsurugi not to tell Grandpa about the branch. Josuke returns to Rai, who, surprisingly, is still alive. Josuke laments that they lost the branch. We then have a brief history about the Rokakaka branch. It is found in New Guinea and has a medical use, yet one must undergo an equivalent exchange in the process. Rai reconstructs his entire body as Joshu rudely interrogates him. Josuke explains that the estate was attacked to obtain the Rokakaka branch, and the ones riding in the ambulance currently have it. Rai says the branch will bear fruit in a minimum of 10 days, so they need to recover it before that happens. Joshu is skeptical that a plant could bear fruit in only 10 days, but Rai says that it is possible if it is grafted to a cactus. Tsurugi suddenly feels extremely nervous. Hato is distraught about the burnt down family orchard. Joshu then recommends that they start a new business with the land. His grand idea is to host mushroom hunting tours. Joshu goes on and on about his grand plans, but Daya informs him that everyone already left. Rai determines that poor Tom and the people in the ambulance didn't start the fire. "Who are you saying lit the fire?" asks Josuke. "The culprit is Jobin. Jobin lit the orchard on fire," replies Rai. Josuke has his doubts, but Rai is confident in his assertion. The two then decide to track down the ambulance. A mysterious woman then enters the university hospital. As an old lady rushes over to the elevator, the woman closes it right in front of her face. Higashikata Mitsuba calls a nurse. Mitsuba sees a doctor, complaining about a variety of ailments. The one of note is the fact that she can't hear out of her right ear. The doctor quickly scarfs down his lunch before starting the examination. He pulls back her hair, revealing crumbling stone on the side of her head. Afterwards, the doctor claims she's in perfect health, and he doesn't see anything wrong with her. Mitsuba reiterates that she can't hear out of her right ear, but the doctor brushes this off. He then resumes eating, as the girl recalls that she came here originally to get her breasts lift. In exchange, however, her teeth became like rocks. The doctor leans her back and instructs her to calm down. The doctor then chugs a bottle of water with a high concentration of silicone in it. The doctor explains that he gets hard skin from time to time as well, and it's nothing to worry about. Mitsuba mentions that Tsurugi, her son, has noticed her hardened skin, and he's persistently asking questions about it. "I have a perfect treatment method," claims the doctor. 200 million yen. That's a one-time only price. The doctor says the treatment can begin as soon as she has paid the price. Yasuho, who's in the hospital, hears about the fire at the Higashikata estate. She heard from Josuke that they lost the branch. She then notices Mitsuba being pushed in a wheelchair by the doctor. Under her skirt are crumbling stone legs. Yasuho compares Mitsuba's situation to her father's, when a pseudo-version crumbled away because of the hairpin. Josuke calls Yasuho to tell her they're at the fire station. He informs her that the ambulance with the license plate 311 does not exist. It's just some ambulance that showed up from somewhere. Josuke relays the video footage from the estate to Yasuho. Yasuho then mentions seeing Mitsuba at the hospital and making the observation that her legs were dry and rough and coming apart. Josuke warns Yasuho to leave the hospital as soon as possible, as he and Rai go there now. Despite his recommendation, Yasuho stays and begins investigating Mitsuba's doctor. His name is Wu Tomoki, and he was one of the people inside the ambulance that Josuke saw earlier. Mitsuba then walks past Yasuho, with her legs in pristine condition. Yasuho peeks into the room, unable to locate the doctor. "Excuse me, but is that you, Yasuho-san?" Hello, Mitsubu-san. Yasuho is here to get medicine for her menstrual pain. She then panics, thinking she's got to escape from the hospital. In an instant, Yasuho's demeanor changes, and she questions Mitsuba about the doctor and the wheelchair. Mitsuba is ignorant to this line of questioning. She claims she's in perfect health. Her purported reason for coming to the hospital today was to have a breast enlargement. In her school days, Mitsuba was Miss Cherry, and in her travels, she met Jobin and eventually married him. She can't let her looks disintegrate, being in the Higashikata family and all. Yasuho spots 2 shards on the table. She then finds the destroyed wheelchair inside the desk drawer. Mitsuba scarfs down the same food that the doctor was eating earlier. Yasuo attempts to call Josuke, but the fragments emit a weird sound, and one of them implants inside of Yasuo's ear. Mitsuba's body is controlled by someone else, and the person claims they know more about going from the realm of life to death. Yasuo is dragged inside and the door is closed. Josuke and Rai enter the hospital, looking for Yasuo. Mitsuba lies on top of Yasuo. She also has blisters all over her hands. Yasuo manages to bring the girl back to her senses, but she's unaware of what just happened. Yasuo demands to know if she ate the Rokakaka fruit. Mitsuba is unaware of what she's talking about, claiming she came here to have her scalp looked at. She paid 200 million yen for the treatment, and she's all better now. Yasuo says there was an equivalent exchange, and that something is missing. Yasuo is attacked once more as Mitsuba notices that her fingers feel heavy. Yasuo's phone is shattered to pieces by Mitsuba's increased weight. The shards on the floor then multiply and attack Yasuo. Paisley Park is summoned to travel to the MRI room and find the fragments inside Yasuo's body. Turns out, the fragments are fusing with her bone tissue, and they're made up of an organic silicon compound. Yasuo passes out, so Paisley Park extracts the fragments through her eye with a syringe. Yasuo grabs Mitsuba's hand and tells her to run away, as they're under attack from Dr. Wu. Yasuo determines that the rock humans are attempting to gain control of the equivalent exchange. Dr. Wu then materializes from the fragments. Mitsuba, run! Dr. Wu activates the air conditioner to spread his fragments across the room. Yasuo catches a glimpse of Rai and Josuke in the hospital. Mitsuba reveals something she hasn't told anyone yet, that she's pregnant. She then wonders what got traded away during her treatment. She then activates her stand. Prior to the examination, Dr. Wu took Mitsuba to the gynecology department. Though she was skeptical, Dr. Wu reassured her that he never fails. He also oversees all of his patients' care, informing her that she's 13 weeks pregnant. Mitsuba's memory blanks after that, but then we see in the treatment room that the Rokakaka fruit is being grown inside. Despite seeing Dr. Wu numerous times, she can't remember what the treatment was like. She has no memory past seeing the fruits. She wonders what she traded away as the two run away. Dr. Wu's body can reduce to tiny fragments and reassemble at his command. The two girls are then headbutt by two men. The two struggle to breathe as Dr. Wu calls for them to return. Dr. Wu wants Mitsuba for money and information. He also knows about Tsurugi's stand and his involvement in the orchard fire. Mitsuba sends out multiple arrows, creating a safe space for her and Yasuo. She uses another arrow to fly into the air and kick Dr. Wu in the face. Her stand, Awakening 3 Leaves, can move energy to the points of the arrow. The two board the elevator. Mitsuba realizes that Dr. Wu was using her this whole time, and he accomplished this by using the fragments, and she needs to flush out those fragments ASAP. She sticks an arrow on her hand and ejects them from her body. To Yasuo's horror, she discovers that two baby arms are amongst the fragments. Wu Tamaki never fails. A brief explanation of Dr. Wu's stand is given. When his particles enter a person's body, it shows up as an allergic reaction. Yet, those particles fuse with the bone tissue, allowing him to control the person's actions. His real age is unknown, but it's estimated that he's 70 years old. Yasuo and Mitsuba are mortified by the realization that Dr. Wu made her trade her unborn fetus in the equivalent exchange. Dr. Wu needs Mitsuba's body to inspect the Higashikata estate. He states that Josuke and they are the evil ones. Dr. Wu grants wishes by healing people's bodies. Though the fruit is a public secret, it is a benefit to all. He reminds Mitsuba that the fetus is 14 weeks and is legal, and because of this, she's become beautiful. Mitsuba uses a triple arrow to accelerate the elevator, giving Dr. Wu quite the jolt. The two affix tape to the doctor's body to keep him in place. Mitsuba breaks down emotionally when she looks at the rock fetus. Yasuo says the tiny hands look alive. Dr. Wu's legs attack Mitsuba, but she uses her arrows to pull him apart. Yasuo continues to tape his shards all over the elevator. They grab his face with the tape and chuck it into the parking lot. Mitsuba uses an arrow to send the fetus fragments back into her stomach again. Yasuo runs into a boy she recognizes, Toru. Toru works as an orderly at the hospital. Yasuo asks Toru to find Josuke and to tell him she's on the 3rd floor. Toru makes a remark that the two were sexually active back in the day before he leaves. Turns out they dated in high school. The two girls enter the gyno room, with Paisley Park being summoned to unlock the door. A video about the fruit is pulled up.
Dr. Wu's voice recording gives a detailed medical explanation of the fruit. Once the teeth bite into the fruit, it takes 3 minutes and 21 seconds for the equivalent exchange to take place. Dr. Wu documents a case where a woman ate the fruit because she wanted luscious lips, but her buttocks became hard in the process. It seems there's no explanation as to why this body part was chosen by the fruit. Paisley Park opens the door to the room with the Rokakaka. Toru tells Josuke to head to the 3rd floor, and that he's Yasuho's ex-boyfriend. The girls decide to steal all the fruit, along with the branches. Mitsuba grabs one of the Rokakaka and chomps down on it. Yasuho notes that it sounds like there's something hard as she chews. Mitsuba then hands Yasuho an arrow, sending her backwards. The rock shards start coming out of the sprinkler system. The arrows continue flinging Yasuho's body around. Wu Tomoki! He was inside the Rokakaka fruit itself! Dr. Wu got back in through the pipes, and now he's in Mitsuba's body. He uses Mitsuba as a mouthpiece. He wants to cure all the world's viruses through the fruit. He then sends the deadly viruses at Yasuho's body. Dr. Wu informs her that Holly Joestar made this lab, but she failed in her research efforts. Yasuho captures the arrows with tape and manages to purge most of Dr. Wu from her body. We then find out that Dr. Wu enters a patient's body and protects a vital part from the fruit, usually the brain. Dr. Wu turns the Rokakaka to fragments and encourages the girls to eat them. The shards are captured with Josuke soft and wet. Yasuho warns them about the viruses. Josuke's bubble contains medical cement, which should keep Dr. Wu at bay. The group determines that the new branch is not in this room. Rai destroys all the Rokakaka in the room. Yasuho mentions that Dr. Wu wanted Mitsuba's body to investigate the Higashikata estate. Josuke is confused, thinking that the ambulance person took the branch. She posits that someone switched the branch during the fire. Mitsuba's nose is then turned into stone because of the equivalent exchange. There are 10 days before the harvest of the new fruit. Rai determines that only 4 doctors had access to the Rokakaka: Dr. Wu, Ryo, Poor Tom, and the mysterious head doctor of the hospital. Now the kanji for Ryo read as Girira, meaning that he was urban gorilla. With 3 of the 4 doctors now dead, they need more information about the mysterious Satoru, the last doctor. Yasuho is adamant that the branch is still at the Higashikata estate. Rai scolds her for her disobedience. He then rules out the suspicious Jobin and claims that the branch was taken right in front of their eyes. He then questions Yasuho's story about the hair clip, suspecting that she was hallucinating. Josuke agrees with Rai's assessment of the situation, saying they need to find a photo of the mysterious doctor. Toru shows up once again. He's currently a medical student and wonders what Yasuho's relationship is to Josuke. She says there's nothing going on between them. Toru notes that Yasuho instinctively grabbed his hand and positioned it on top of his. Yasuho quickly pulls away from Toru, with the boy leaving shortly afterwards. At the estate, someone licks Hato's ear. Tsurugi steps on Joshu's disconnected tongue, revealing that he was the culprit. We then get a brief aside about stand abilities. Stand abilities are a reflection of one's heart, yet you hide them from others, even your loved ones. But there are times when those feelings bubble over, and one cannot stop the flow of energy that is a stand. Tsurugi enters the office and drags Norisuke's body to the balcony. An origami frog hops out of the body bag. The time to harvest is 13 minutes. We then go back in time. These are the events that happened 7 days prior. Mitsuba picks up Tsurugi from the scouts. A scout leader then pulls her aside to recount a troubling event. Campers were teasing Tsurugi about his grandmother killing a child. A kid claims that his dad, Jobin, did the killing, and Kato took the rap for him. A frog then jumps on the girl's shoe, freaking her out and causing her to fall in the water. Tsurugi was henceforth blamed for the incident. Mitsuba says they cut ties with his grandmother, and the Higashikatas are not at fault. She then threatens to have the scout leader fired and calls for Tsurugi. Mina, the girl who teased Tsurugi, is then crushed between the school's gates. The crying mother asserts that someone pushed the gates together to hurt her daughter. "I saw! That kid made the gates move!" as she points to Tsurugi. There are 6 days, 4 hours, and 12 minutes before the harvest of the Rokakaka. Rai, Josuke, and Yasuho begin their search for the mysterious head doctor. The 3 don't have an appointment with him, so Rai attempts to barge in. Rai asks the receptionist why there's no picture of the head doctor on the website. A cryptic man with a cane walks past them, raising their attention. That's Satoru Akafu. "Head doctor! Wait!" Yasuho takes a picture of the back of his head. The 3 chase him down, eventually spotting him on the stairwell. An unknown stand lurks behind Josuke. Josuke attacks with soft and wet, but it suddenly disappears. Josuke claims the stand did something, but the other two saw nothing. Stop! Where are you going, Satoru Akafu? The 89-year-old runs away. The three give chase, but Rai runs into a gurney with a patient on it. The three lose sight of the doctor. Toru checks in on the patient and calls Yasuo over. The child is suffering from an emergency diabetes attack. The child choked on a piece of chicken and is now entering cardiac arrest, i.e. a heart attack. With Yasuo's help, Toru manages to dislodge the chicken fragment. Toru embraces Yasuo. Looks like we ran into each other at a good time. Seems like that's always the way with us. Josuke claims that Toru used the gurney to distract them. Toru dispels the notion by pointing out that the head doctor is sitting on a chair. Elsewhere, Mitsuba wonders if Tsurugi is hiding something from her. Tsurugi wonders the same thing about her. It is now 6 days, 3 hours, and 25 minutes until the harvest. The video footage shows Tsurugi by the gate. Mina suffered minor injuries from the incident. Mitsuba defends her son by saying Mina got herself caught in the gate. She threatens the other parents and tells them to keep their children away from her son. Mitsuba puts arrows on their coffee cups, causing them to splash in their faces. Mitsuba then sees the head doctor on the video footage of when the gate incident happened. She then wonders why he was there. At home, Jobin accuses his wife of getting plastic surgery on her nose. Turned on by her new look, Jobin takes her to the bedroom to fool around a little bit. Mitsuba says that Tsurugi is hiding something from them. She mentions the incident about the kids calling his grandmother a child killer. So to be honest, Tsurugi had a motive, says Mitsuba. There is good and bad luck in this world, replies Jobin. Jobin boils everything down to strength and weakness. The strong survive and the weak are destroyed. The Higashikatas always get their hands on the strength, and Tsurugi understands this. As Jobin leaves with his beetle, Mitsuba notices that the head doctor is outside the estate. After scratching herself, he disappears into thin air. She asks Jobin for a band-aid, catching a glimpse of the new Rokakaka. Elsewhere, Josuke instructs the doctor to turn around, but a glass door gets in his way. Yasuo opens the door with Paisley Park, but then Rai falls into some chairs. The three split up, deciding to corner the doctor on the elevator. Yasuo reassures Josuke that her and Toru are no longer a thing. The head doctor manages to elude them once more, with Rai falling down once again. Yasuo looks at the video footage with Paisley Park, unable to get a good look at the doctor's face. Toru then calls Yasuo's phone. Yasuo continues looking at the video footage as Josuke listens to the voicemail. Toru states he regrets leaving her 1 year ago, and he wants to get back together again. He instructs her to meet her at the place on the photo. Rai states that running into all these objects was an attack. We then see his legs in a mangled state. It's an attack where something knocks into us. Some mysterious power continues to knock stuff into Rai. It's a stand ability. Josuke's finger begins bleeding from knocking into the ICU door. Yasuo sees the doctor on the bus, but Rai advises them not to chase him down until they know who he is. Yasuo saw the doctor stand too, and it's enticing them to follow the doctor. Desperate to get a photo of his face, Yasuo runs up to the bus. A cigarette falls on the Josuke, causing him immense pain. We shouldn't just chase after him. Something will knock into us. Yasuo persists on. I can almost see it! A car collides into Yasuo. Fortunately, Josuke's bubbles protect her from getting seriously injured. The two seem alright after the incident, but Rai says there was a gap in time before the attack took place. A strange man accuses Josuke of getting some blood in his mouth. Josuke blocks his punch with soft and wet. But then, without warning, the man's neck snaps. Rai claims it was from the doctor's attack. It must have repelled off of Josuke and hit this man. To avoid trouble with the police, Rai and Josuke leave. They tell Yasuo to find them before they depart. Toru comes to Yasuo. He says he'll testify for Josuke, since the man tripped on his own. Toru puts his hand on Yasuo's and says he's worried about her. It is now 5 days, 1 hour, and 5 minutes until the harvest. Ojiro enjoys a jacuzzi, inviting Kitani to join him. Kitani bemoans her incident with Mitsuba earlier. She then points out the Higashikata estate, and she mentions her desire to build a casino there. She thought if she got close to Norisuke that good things would happen. Ojiro implores her to appreciate what she has, like the baseball team and her great condo. Despite this, Kitani is hell-bent on attaining the estate. Kitani then mentions there's a piece of land on the Walleyes that allows for an exchange to take place. Rumors have swirled that Jobin transferred his disease to his classmates and got better. In a hurry to pick up her daughter, Kitani steps on Ojiro's prosthetic fingers. She offers to buy him new ones, but he tells her it's all good. He then recalls that Yoshikage Kira told him about the equivalent exchange, but it wasn't about the ground. It was about a fruit. Despite the fact that Yoshikage Kira's questioning caused him to bite off his own fingers, Ojiro still considers him a close friend. As an aside, his stand's name is Fun Fun Fun. Ojiro eats numerous goodies from the fruit parlor. He then puts his trash on a bag and sticks it to somebody's luggage with some gum. He then takes a picture of Norisuke entering the building. Tsurugi dreams about the fire and the new Rokakaka branch. A baby touches Tsurugi's origami frog. Tsurugi runs off as the baby drowns in the nearby fountain. The first signs of the rock disease are showing themselves, but the boy aims to keep this a secret from everyone. If Norisuke ever finds this out, he'll likely offer himself in the equivalent exchange. While thinking about what happiness is, Ojiro warns him about a steep cliff. He then inquires about a dry cleaners that made 200 million yen in profits last year. Ojiro determines that the fruit company and the dry cleaner run an operation together in which they launder money. In his search to find Tamaki's dry cleaner, however, he came up empty, so he's going to investigate the Higashikata fruit parlor instead. Ojiro mentions that the fruit allows one to cure an illness through an equivalent exchange. He heard there's a ship smuggling in the fruit, and now he wants to steal one to make a large profit. Ojiro's gonna blow the whistle on Norisuke if Tsurugi doesn't let him meet his grandfather. Tsurugi uses Paper Moon to distract Ojiro in almost falling off the cliff. At home, Tsurugi is in a panic, telling his dad that he met Ojiro and that he said Jobin was going to jail. Jobin wonders who this Ojiro is. He then spots a knocked down flower pot and a dirt footprint on the windowsill. He rushes over to check in on the Rokakaka branch. Jobin then notices an odd mark on Tsurugi's left hand. Ojiro controls the boy's hand to show him the location of the new Rokakaka fruit with a phone. Ojiro sends an image to Kitani and says he'll grab one of the fruits for himself. Tsurugi mentions that he can't control his hand's actions right now. Jobin tells his son to be quiet as they're now being recorded. Tsurugi desperately attempts to rub off the mark. The boy opens up the window against his will and smashes the phone into his face. He's then thrown into the window. Jobin attempts to grab the phone, but Ojiro places a mark on his right and left hand. Time to choose. Jobin strangles Tsurugi against his will. Are you gonna strangle your own son? Or maybe push him onto a piece of glass till something gets cut off? Ojiro gives Jobin a third option, to hand over all the fruit he's cultivating. Tsurugi begs for his dad to stop, so Jobin, reluctantly, is ready to make a deal. 3 more days until the fruit can be harvested, says Jobin. As a final precaution, Ojiro asks to see their stands, so he'll know what kind of attack range they'll have. Ojiro determines that Jobin's stand looks pretty strong, so he forces him to close the window, with the broken shards of glass landing on his son. As the two bleed out, Ojiro grabs the Rokakaka flower pot. To add insult to injury, Ojiro steals money from Jobin's wallet. After taking a taxi, Ojiro begins to feel extremely hot. Blisters form all over his body. What the hell is going on? While Ojiro's skin is scalding, we find out that the broken glass was an illusion created by Tsurugi's stand. Jobin aims to collect the plant, but he wonders why trash like him showed up at the estate in the first place. At Kitani's condo, she picks up a ringing phone. Jobin tells her that his Speed King can store heat in one place, and it keeps it from dispersing. And when that place is touched, it starts flowing again. Jobin determines she's not a stand user, yet, because she's Ojiro's girlfriend, he still uses Speed King on her to burst her eye with the heat. She falls into the pool and sinks to her death. We then see Ojiro's body, having suffered the same fate. Jobin recovers the plant with 3 days, 1 hour, and 19 minutes left. Norisuke reads that the police are searching for Josuke. Elsewhere, Rai says that when someone pursues a doctor, an attack knocks into you. Rai instructs Josuke to avoid electronics so they're not tracked. We find out that they're in a car stuck in a tree. A friend of Rai brings him some peaches. Rai points to an article that states that there will be a lecture at the TG University Hospital, with Satoru Akafu being in attendance. We'll find out his true identity. Josuke then notices an obituary for Ojiro in the newspaper. There are now only 48 hours until harvest of the fruit. Josuke feels the presence of the mysterious stand once again. He attacks, but again, nothing's there. The two jump out of the car, with their senses on high alert. The two wonder if they've been watched this whole time. Rai determines that the intent to pursue the doctor was enough to trigger his stand. The two get moving with the cops telling them to stop. It starts to rain, with the droplets tearing through their bodies. It's gonna crush down right on us! Josuke creates a shield out of his bubbles to protect them. The two then jump into the backseat of the cop car to protect themselves. Josuke thinks of Yasuo, hoping she's not pursuing the doctor right now. Josuke thinks it's impossible to chase down the doctor with this stand ability. Our will to pursue is the stand switch. The officers instruct them to step out of the car as backup arrives. With the rain outside, the two can't do that. The officers get persistent. Josuke tells Rai he's an amalgamation of two people. He's got no memories, and no one is searching for him. But he wants to get his hands on the fruit and settle things right here, right now. The only way to prove his existence is to cure Holly of her illness. Josuke says he'll pursue the doctor alone from this point forward. He jumps out of the car and is immediately hit by multiple droplets. "Are you insane?" yells Rai as he watches his friend collapse to the ground. The medics place Josuke in an ambulance as Rai watches him with cuffs on his hands. The officer says that Josuke is being sent to the hospital, which means he's found a loophole to get close to the head doctor. Elsewhere, Toru and Yasuo sit on a porch together. Toru recalls an incident when Yasuo said, "Electricity spills out and flies into the sky, even if there's no holes in the power lines." This sparked an idea in Toru, which he brought to Apple and other companies, a mechanism for electromagnetism induction that can charge something without an electrical output. Unfortunately, all these companies heard about this idea once before, which means it's a little bit too late. Anxiety and anger manifested within Toru, making him want to disappear forever. It was then that he stopped contacting Yasuo. Toru grabs Yasuo's hand, saying that they used to be so happy together. Yasuo's phone buzzes. Paisley Park has found Rai, though he was alone in a store. Toru interrupts her. "You've been looking for the head doctor, right?" Toru's got some photos of him on his phone. He shows Yasuo a photo of the head doctor with Mitsuba. It then starts to rain as there's only 48 hours left until harvest. Toru wants to provide assistance to Yasuo and her friends. "What have you all been doing at the TG University Hospital?" Yasuo doesn't reveal any information, as she wonders why Mitsuba knows the doctor. Mitsuba is being targeted, and the doctor is still searching for the new Rokakaka. Yasuo wants Toru to drive her to the Higashikata estate. Tsurugi's disease is accelerating at an exponential rate. Mitsuba reads the article about Kitani's death, and Josuke's arrest warrant. While preparing dinner, Mitsuba notices the head doctor walking on their property. She then carelessly cuts into her own fingers. After fixing them with her stand, the pot of boiling water goes up in flames. She uses her arrows to protect herself from the scalding water. Mitsuba then wonders if this was some kind of an attack just now. A droplet of water lands on Tsurugi's nose, creating a painful crater. The rock disease takes hold of his body. The Higashikata time limit has finally come! Despite the transformation, Tsurugi explains that the Higashikatas always win. Tsurugi! At the lecture, Dr. Akafu arrives. An officer checks in on Josuke. Josuke uses soft and wet to knock the man unconscious. Satoru's stand activates, however, sending the officer onto Josuke. The host of the conference talks about regenerative medicine and its many roadblocks. He then introduces the head doctor, Satoru Akafu. Josuke, in obvious pain, knocks over a medical cart as he crawls on the floor. A mysterious person mistakes him for Yoshikage Kira and talks about the severity of his wounds. And it turns out that the person is none other than Holly Joestar, and she quizzes him about a pet animal he had when he was a child. Holly saw him carried into the ICU, but she needs him to do some walking so she can treat him. Josuke then notices some weird measurements all over her body. She's been getting forgetful, so she wrote helpful notes all over her body. Josuke notices the stone inside her body. What's more, it's moving. According to the numbers, the rock will reach her brain in 120 seconds, at which point she'll go unconscious. Satoru pulls out a tube of liquid Rokakaka, which, as he states, is a living regenerative substance. Going beyond regeneration, it will bring about an exchange for sound health. Josuke looks at Holly's arm, which reads, Rokakaka 6251. Your son's name is Yoshikage. Gynecology department room. Do not trust Wu Tomaki, and you're losing your memory. Satoru reveals Rokakaka 6251, which has successfully treated many animal subjects. He now wants to explain how the medicine can be used to heal the brain. Holly explains that in the past, she was instructed to take less overtime by the hospital. It was then that Satoru took over, and a bunch of new doctors were hired on, including Dr. Wu, Poor Tom, and Urban Gorilla. Even Tomaki's group were subordinates of Satoru. Holly uses an axe to break her way into the Rokakaka room.
Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
She hands Josuke the Rokakaka and tells him to take it orally. Though his wounds will be exchanged for rock, he has no other choice at this point, given the severity of his wounds. Holly determines that another coma is imminent. Don't go after him. The head doctor, no matter what. Apparently, the doctor has no face, and every form of harmful force will come crashing into him if he chases him down. Josuke is unrelenting, vowing to kill the doctor. He chugs the Rokakaka liquid, with his mouth immediately turning into stone. This is insane! I can't breathe! Now I can't drink the rest of the Rokakaka! This was another attack from Satoru's stand. Holly opens a hole in his cheek and pours the liquid through it. The head doctor's form cannot be grasped. Yoshikage, you absolutely must not chase after him. Holly enters a coma as Josuke cries over her. She was under the impression that I was her son, Yoshikage. Josuke's wounds miraculously heal up. My name is Josuke Higashikata. Though his memories are gone, he knows for certain that Holly is his mother and he's her son. Soft and Wet destroys a wall as Josuke swears to save her life. Holly's words then ring through his head that he can't chase Satoru, but it's okay if the doctor chases him. A delivery man shows up at Holly Joestar's room. Josuke hands him a parcel, and the delivery man seems perplexed about the delivery address. Josuke hands him a fistful of money, and he gets going. Josuke sits in a chair and contemplates a plan for getting the doctor to chase him. Yasuo knows the new Rokakaka is at the Higashikata estate. Paisley Park uses Joshu's phone to investigate the estate. Joshu asks his dad where Jobin is. Norisuke turns away from his son in a deep state of sorrow. Yasuo trusts Mitsuba, but her phone is set off at the moment. She gets a visual of Tsurugi, who is suffering immensely from the rock disease. Paisley Park knocks Joshu's phone out of his pocket. Joshu goes to pick it up, as we now see Paisley Park inside Tsurugi's room. What's going on, Tsurugi-chan? Are you sick? Asks Yasuo. The boy urges her to leave immediately. Yasuo asks about the new Rokakaka, but he tells her to go home. I love you, big sis. You shouldn't be here. The phone is grabbed by a mysterious person and thrown in the toilet. She looks up to see that it was Jobin who did this. Jobin flushes the toilet as water squirts out of Yasuo's body. 3 hours and 24 minutes before the harvest. We will be able to harvest before sunset. And Tsurugi, the Higashikata family will shine on and on. Norisuke has made up his mind to perform the exchange, but Jobin says with the fruit, that will no longer be needed. If the phone gets submerged in the water, Yasuo worries what will happen to Paisley Park and herself. Somebody, help! I need to get the phone out of the water! Yasuo uses a security camera to beg for help, which Mitsuba sees on the monitors. She determines that Yasuo was here to see Tsurugi. Mitsuba walks into Tsurugi's room. What is all this? Dear? What in the world are you doing? Says Mitsuba. Shh, Mitsuba. Just shut that door and step out of the room. Paisley Park is getting destroyed in the water. Mitsuba wonders if this is concerning that thing that's in the stag beetle room. Since Yasuo saved her at the hospital, Mitsuba begs Jobin not to hurt her. Jobin has had enough, saying he can't reveal the secret to anyone, including Norisuke. Yasuo begs for help, as Mitsuba says that Dr. Akafu is on the wall of the estate. That person is... how? Strains Yasuo. Upon staring at Akafu's face, Mitsuba states she loves her husband and closes the lid of the toilet. Yasuo turns her attention to Akafu, but her body is thrown around like a rag doll, detaching her right arm in the process. Akafu leaves as Mitsuba tells Jobin that that was the head doctor. Mitsuba says when you see the head doctor, things crash into you, a calamity as it were. Mitsuba looks to flush Paisley Parkway away with her arrows. Yet, the attack backfires. The arrows shoot across the room and break into the nearby wall, revealing the nearly grown Rokakaka. Akafu's stand definitely caused this backfire. Norisuke bursts in the room with everyone else. He saves Paisley Parkway from the toilet and wonders what the hell is going on. Jobin claims that the Higashikata family will win, and this is the right path. Dad, put that smartphone back in the water. Yasuo notices Akafu in the garage. Jobin, have you had the new Rokakaka branch this whole time? Yes, that's right, Dad. And now, it's a grown fruit, replies Jobin. With the fruit, they could break the curse that has plagued the family for generations. In that case, I'll go along with what you say, my eldest son, says Narisuke. However, that is if, and only if, we are indeed walking on the right path. Narisuke summons King Nothing to investigate an odd smell coming from the plant. King Nothing takes the form of Ojiro as he reenacts the events from when he stole the flower pot. The family wonders if this is the event that led to his and Kitani's death. Tsurugi's transformation continues to progress as Narisuke spots Yasuo outside. Speed King touches the back of Narisuke's neck. I'm sorry, Dad. Please, I can't turn back from this path. Please forgive me. Jobin, you... The others look to embrace Narisuke, but Speed King blocks their path. You better be prepared. Otherwise, close your mouths. We the Higashikata family are moving forward on this path. The right path. Jobin proceeds to cover up his dad's body. They'll harvest the plant at sundown. We are winning. Jobin looks at the phone as Paisley Park returns to Yasuo. The family is distraught as Jobin begins to worry. Though Paisley Park is back, Yasuo is still in extreme pain. Mitsuba considers this to be a calamity, one that has been following them for quite some time, and now the whole family is caught up in it. In a jail cell, Rai reveals that he snuck in a fully charged phone and a knife from the evidence locker. He can't leave because the elderly man outside has his back turned. This presence haunts Rai, and he determines that it's some kind of calamity energy. When he tries to look at his face, numerous misfortunes occur in the jail cell. He tries to call Josuke, but his food bursts open with maggots. Rai uses the phone to show his cellmate, Dr. Akafu, or more precisely, the calamity's power. Rai discovers that his cellmate is a child killer, and that karmic link propels him to slice his own neck, which is precisely what Rai was banking on. Rai uses his wires to hide in the man's clothing as they take him to the hospital. After reconstructing his body, he notices the stand in the parking lot, which means that the user is in some other place. Yasuo attempts to chase the doctor's stand. Yasuo calls Toru and begs for his help. Toru says he'll call an ambulance, but she doesn't want that. She just wants him to come over. The boy then decides to head over. Because outsiders know about the fruit, someone will try to steal it from Jobin. Hado, Daya, and Joshu carry Narisuke's body to the second floor of the estate, as Jobin decides to hide the fruit once again. Mitsuba's not sure if Tsurugi will make it to sunset, as she sees the doctor walk by. She then sees his reflection in various surfaces in the room. The calamities are designed to elucidate the location of the fruit, and to make everyone destroy themselves in the process. There's something there? Jobin attacks with Speed King. No! You mustn't go towards the head doctor! Jobin removes the sheets, only to find a can of hairspray. It explodes as he wonders where the doctor is. For Mitsuba, the attack started when she met Dr. Wu. The attacks will continue endlessly. Jobin thanks Mitsuba for being by his side all this time. He sees Yasuo and a mysterious figure on the security footage. Jobin bleeds from his mouth. His chest gushes open with blood, due to the gas from the hairspray. Tsurugi! Says Jobin. Outside the estate, Toru happily listens to music on his iPod. The delivery man paid by Josuke hands over the package. A reporter from Pangea Land introduces himself to Dr. Akafu. The package was addressed to the reporter, and it contains an SD card with a video of Holly Joestar. The package also contains a jar with broken up pieces of fruit. Who did you get that from? Asks the doctor. The reporter can't reveal that information, as it would be a breach of confidentiality. He then deduces that the fruit is the raw material for the Lokakaka 6251, and that they tested it on Holly. Did you perhaps come here intending to pursue me? The The reporter says yes. Akafu asks if the reporter opened the jar. He then determines that the fruit's liquids enter the reporter's body in some fashion, possibly through a cut in the skin. The reporter's acne on his face heals. Unfortunately, his neck turns into stone, killing him immediately. Rai looks to enter the hospital as he notices that the doctor is behind him, meaning they are both going for Josuke. Meanwhile, Josuke waits for the doctor. It's Josuke Higashikata. Interesting. So he's not pursuing. He's inviting. Akafu walks through objects and even uses his reflection to hop onto the escalator. Rai needs to get to Josuke first. He rushes over, wondering why Josuke is just sitting down. The right path. Even if walked on by a saint who makes no mistakes, it is unavoidable that bad things will sometimes occur. That is calamity. Toru looks to collect the new Rokakaka. At the hospital, the doctor's stand manifests through the wall. Rai warns him about an all-out power called the Calamity, and it's coming this way. Josuke summons his bubbles, saying there is a way to defeat him. The stand enters through the wall, but ends up stopping just halfway through, just before putting his feet on the floor. "Oh, something seems odd in this lab," says Toru. Yasuo notices that someone was in the shrubs just now. Joshu grabs a plant, saying something terrible has happened and he's gonna help Yasuo. Akafu senses a trap, hence the reason he hasn't stepped into the room yet. The point where those on a long journey are most likely to meet with an accident is just before returning home. I have obtained the Lokakaka, and both you and I will soon return home. Akafu releases a living creature into the floor. The creature attacks Josuke, forcing him to defend with soft and wet. This is a rocked insect, and it is carnivorous. Josuke claims that the attacks have been designed to lure them out in the open to find the fruit. Since he's still attacking them, however, that means he doesn't have the Lokakaka. A little bit of brief information about rock humans. A human male can reproduce with a rock female, but the opposite is not true. After the mother gives birth to the rock baby, she leaves the child in the forest. Insects begin to attack the child, yet the child desires this, for it latches onto the hornet. And with no other choice, the hornet must return to the hive. During the flight, half of the child's body turns to stone. While inside the hive, the rock baby searches out the queen and takes over her body while she's still half alive. It ends up spending 17 years inside the bodies of multiple generations of queens as it undergoes a metamorphosis. It then abruptly grows in weight and stature, and thusly kills all the wasps, venturing off into the world on its own. Life first came about 4 billion years ago. The control towers of life called neurons are the cells that are bonded and evolved based on the element of carbon. At the same time, life cells that bonded from silicon were born, and while they were only a few in number and percentage of living cells, the silicon-based existed alongside the carbon-type organisms, as if hiding next to them. The creatures whose bodies that are formed by those cells are rock organisms. Why did a creator give life to these two paths? Most likely, rather than some kind of opposing relationship, like a shadow for a light, or a positive and a negative, it was the role of a fallback. Insurance, for in case the existence of life itself failed. If the first path of carbon-based life came to a dead end, it was a fallback, a second path. That is the role the rock humans serve. Rock humans' actions are fundamentally independent, and they have no families. But sometimes, if it's to their advantage, they will form groups and slip into human society. Rock humans have a fascination with ground, rock, and stone, see blessings from the earth as true benefits, and make special places that give rock humans special power and their true homes. Bearing in mind humans' ecological behavior to spread and migrate across the continents, and they're continuing to migrate to this day. We then see a flashback of the Steel Ball Run, with Johnny Joestar, Gyro, and the Sandman. There is no chance of forming a relationship of mutual recognition between them and the rock humans, nor any chance that they can assimilate. The Devil's Palm and the ground of Morio, says Lucy Steele. We then see a briefcase that says Speedwagon on it. At a funeral for Rai's dad, Narisuke gives the boy a hug. Rai claims that insects ruined his father's orchard. It turns out that a typhoon made landfall and precipitated a rock slide that killed his father. Rai then notices an odd person at the funeral. In real time, he realizes that this was Dr. Akafu. The doctor says that the flow is carrying the fruit to him, just as the flow will make Josuke pursue him. The insect goes for another attack. After summoning Soft and Wet, asbestos fills his eyes and mouth. Rai blocks an oncoming attack. "Don't move, Josuke! It's poison!" Akafu explains that trying to escape or extending the joints causes you to spew more asbestos. The doctor says that Rai's father was caught in the flow of calamity, wonder of you, as it were, thus sealing his fate. The insect then burrows into the surface of the desk. You're hiding something, aren't you, Josuke Higashikata? Josuke attempts to pummel the insect with soft and wet. The bottom, Josuke! On the underside of the table! Josuke's left hand gets caught, but he continues punching the desk. The boy moves to the wall. Because Josuke stood up, his body begins spewing copious amounts of asbestos. Akafu claims that the insect usually goes for the throat, to clog up the airway. The insect then goes for the throat, but Rai prevents this. Rai then destroys the insect and points his wire at Akafu's head. From this position, 2 centimeters away. Do you think some calamity will occur to block my way, Josuke? Josuke says they can't pursue him, as Rai is only 1 centimeter away. Akafu claims that no one has gotten this close to him, so he's not even sure what will happen at this point. Rai's parents died to a flow of calamity. His being here today is by mere chance. Rai clenches onto Akafu's neck. I've got you now! Die, motherfucker! Rai's stand misses the doctor. Josuke's soap bubbles collide with him, causing catastrophic damage. The calamity brought out his bubbles. Akafu notes that Josuke stored several things inside the bubbles, that he's making spin at high speeds. Are you kidding me? Josuke is in disbelief, thinking that he was controlling the bubbles. Rai demonstrates that the bubbles are a line that are spinning. Inside, there is spin, and within it, there are things that cannot be seen. At the estate, Toru eats some hornets. So there are soap bubbles that can't be seen, says Toru. Joshu tells Yasuo that his big bro Jobin is dead. Yasuo tells him that someone is after the fruit, so he needs to contact Josuke. I'll protect you, we don't need that guy. With 2 Lokakaka fruits on the branch, Joshu offers to fix her missing arm. Joshu is tired of being a pathetic loser, and wants to use the fruit to save his dad, nephew, and Yasuo. Toru decides it would be good to watch her eat the fruit and see what the effects are. Joshu offers himself for the equivalent exchange. Our bodies joining in an exchange. It might create a bond way better than sex. Joshu gets on top of her as they hear something in the trees. Yasuo determines that it must be Toru, since she called him earlier. She quickly chomps on the fruit and gulps it down. Joshu's leg goes through hers. Little strawberry, I ain't scared. Yasuo's arm grows back to normal as Joshu's withers away. My right arm is... It's frickin' disappearing! As a child, Yasuo begged her mother not to leave her at summer camp. Yasuo inspected her phone with Paisley Park and found out that she was going to Okinawa with someone. After cutting her finger and running off, Yasuo meets up with Toru. Toru looks like an adult, the same age he is now, and states he's a troubled soul. He's looking for a person, but he doesn't know who. Yasuo wants to help him out, so she uses her phone to search for someone. She henceforth shows him a picture of Dr. Akafu. He looks good. I could easily impersonate him, thinks Toru. Toru walks into the woods, saying they should meet again after she's forgotten all about him. In the now, the equivalent exchange adapts to Yasuo's body. Joshu is distressed by what happened. Toru contemplates his possibilities of wielding unlimited power and wealth by selling the fruit to the world's elite. Yasuo can't get into contact with Josuke or Rai at the moment. She then calls out Toru, saying he's the stand user and a rock human. Toru claims that if she makes visual contact with him, the flow of calamity will reach its final form, and she'll die. He wants her help, yet he warns her about the dangers of pursuing him. He claims that everyone will eventually die, but she can still live if she leaves the new Lokakaka where it is, and go home. How long have you been in my life? Says Yasuo. Yasuo grabs Joshu's phone, but Toru advises against it. Give it back! It's mine! Screams Joshu. That right arm is mine! Give it back! Yasuo thinks she can use the calamity to her advantage. She wonders whom she can call as Joshu absolutely loses it. Are you gonna fondle Josuke's balls with my right hand? You fucking slut! I ain't gonna let that happen! Give me my fucking arm back! Yasuo decides to call the maid with Joshu bearing down on her. By calling Kei, the order will change to Yasuo dying next. Kei takes care of her mother as she receives the phone call from Yasuo. Yasuo instructs her to find Josuke, as Kei determines his location by looking at Holly's arm. On an airplane, high pressure begins to leak, causing the panel for the evacuation slide to fall off. The panel comes cratering to the earth. Yasuo notices Toru stand in the trees. In the phone conversation, Yasuo warned Kei about the calamity and the fluid disaster. Since Josuke is half of her brother, she's accepted the consequences of her actions. Josuke uses soft and wet to break the Lokakaka samples. So you want me to approach you? The stand dodges the floating bubbles and says that Yasuo is currently at the Higashikata estate. Very shortly, she will die. Soft and wet punches in anger, but a glass shard then lodges into Josuke's neck. Josuke looks to kick the stand, but it explodes on one of his bubbles. He impales himself with multiple items as he falls down. When Josuke falls, it opens a drawer, unleashing a gust of wind. Kei's stand, born this way, makes its grand arrival in the battle. Unthinkable! This can't be! Toru begins bleeding from his head, shocked that an attack finally got through. Josuke continues destroying the Lokakaka samples. This cannot be. This world follows an interconnected chain of logic. To overcome that chain of logic and launch an attack that touched me is simply... Kei walks in to hand Josuke her phone. Unfortunately, her eye was impaled in the proceedings. She collapses to the ground as her stand disintegrates. Toru thinks that if something exists that is not affected by the logic of this world, it's spinning, i.e. the soap bubbles. Through Paisley Park, Yasuo tells Josuke that this stand is controlled by Toru. This means that the head doctor and the enemy stand are one and the same. If we kill the user, then these calamities will end. Toru gives up on Josuke. Toru tells Yasuo to give him the plant. If she does so, he will thusly vanish from Morio. Josuke, run! He left the room! Rai tells Josuke that the head doctor fears him. He must use those invisible things, the spin, to defeat him. They can surpass his ability, I'm sure of it. Toru says Yasuo will die as Joshu barges in on the situation. Joshu rushes towards Toru, but a leaf slices 2 of his fingers off. Joshu then falls onto Yasuo as Toru grabs the pot. Yasuo tells Josuke that Toru took the Rokakaka and that something large is falling from the sky and is heading her way. Josuke takes aim at the stand with his newly created spin. The doctor laughs at him and walks off as a bubble floats from his birthmark. In a flashback, we see Josefumi and Kira merging together. Though Josuke can't control the spin on the bubble that comes from his shoulder, it's an explosive entity that doesn't exist in this world. Wonder if Yu's staff is destroyed by the spin. Unfortunately, the stand released Oblati and Oblata, a rock insect, that burrows into Josuke's skin. Josuke attempts to peel it off, but the insect rapidly multiplies. Meanwhile, the falling debris fastly approaches Yasuo as Toru moseys his way on out. Yasuo-chan, I'll protect you! Josuke urges Yasuo to protect herself with Paisley Park. Paisley Park stops the elevator that Wonder of You was in. Fire, Josuke! One more shot! Go! The hatch is ready to make impact. Josuke lines up his shot. Yet, at the last moment, the bug deflects it, making it veer off to the right. With the bug covering most of his body, Josuke collapses to the ground. Paisley Park returns to Yasuo through the phone, along with one of Josuke's spin bubbles, which is heading straight towards Toru. Nurses walk upon the wreckage in the hospital. Josuke's bubble connects with Toru, leaving substantial damage. The panel then collides into the Higashikata house, causing massive damage. And the reason this happened instead of hitting Yasuo is because Toru was injured. I was spared by the calamity! The injured doctor walks away from the scene. Josuke crawls into the elevator and tells Yasuo that the bubble came out of his left shoulder. Since Toru is still alive, Josuke wants to shoot one more bubble through Yasuo's phone. Despite his wounds, Toru stands up and starts approaching the girl. He takes the second Rokakaka and eats it, looking to make an exchange with Yasuo. Joshu attacks with a stand, but a steel beam falls on his head, knocking him unconscious. Toru traps Yasuo. Josuke then jumps into a bath to remove the insects from his body. Point it at him! I need you to point your screen at Toru! Yasuo points the phone in his face as he grabs her hand. The bubble connects with Toru's neck. Eat this! Soft and wet go beyond! That soap bubble does not exist anywhere. Toru continues forging on, crawling his way towards Kato. Josuke checks in on Holly, as he also thinks of those that he lost. Kato brought over some soup for her son Jobin. Yasuo warns her about Toru and the equivalent exchange. Toru, surprisingly, grabs a serrated knife and points it at Kato. What do you all have left in the end of the dreams and memories of your family? Kato throws some cards at Toru, using them to pin him down to the ground. Yasuo urges her to run due to the impending calamity. Wonder if Yu arrives on the roof. Kato places her hand in front of Toru. Do you want to touch me? Kato has something hidden within her cards, but then we have a flashback. Jobin panics in front of his mother about something. Two of his beetles performed an equivalent exchange with each other. Below the beetle Terranium sits the Rokakaka. Jobin worries that more enemies will eventually come for him. Jobin reveals that only him and Tsurugi know about the branch and the orchard fire. Jobin loses composure, but his mother instructs him to focus on his family's good fortune. Kato says the Higashikatas must break the curse, as she throws some of her cards on the plant to hide it. In the present, Toru wonders what's in between the cards. My family's curse. And now, you will undertake all of this. Tsurugi comes out of the cards and lands next to Toru. The equivalent exchange between you and Tsurugi. Will the illness come to this side? Kato smashes the Rokakaka branch between her cards. How dare you do this to me? Screams Toru as Wonder of You attacks Kato. The stand and Toru disintegrate to rock, as it looks like the Higashikata curse has finally been passed on. Toru calls the branch Divine Providence, as Kato tells him to accept her grandson's illness. He begs for Yasuo's help, telling her to kill the bitch, but he ends up shattering into a million pieces. I thought I saw a hornet. Oh, I see. It was a memory of mine. Tsurugi's illness is completely gone. Unfortunately, the serrated knife is in Kato's side. Tears stream down her face as she thinks of the family before she passes away. JoJolion. This is a story about breaking a curse. One cannot see the shape of a person's heart. The sacrifices the Higashikatas endured were far too large. Despite it all, the family acted in the name of hope, because at the moment, the curse was broken. Tsurugi determines that Jobin's attack on Risuke was only minor, meaning he's still alive. A mysterious hand then lurks beneath the blanket, covering Risuke. Yasuo thinks it's the doctor's hand, but she finds nothing. Fingers then protrude from the inside of Risuke's mouth. Even without a user to control it, will the head doctor still not disappear? The laws of calamity are just things that exist, and Toru was using it to his own ends. The doctor resides within Risuke's body. Josuke arrives, telling everyone to stand back as he fires another bubble. The calamity blasted to bits. It is now 1941 as we investigate the Radio Gaga incident. Lucy Steele arrives in S City. A man offers to carry her bags, but ends up running away with them. A young man kicks down the baggage thief and returns the bags back to Lucy. She offers to pay the man to watch after her for today. However, he says he needs to meet with his girlfriend. He then tells Lucy that the image in the photo is from the Radio Gaga incident. Fumi, the boy, meets his girlfriend, but he then realizes that the man from earlier stole his wallet. Fumi then takes Lucy up on her offer. She mentions that she works for the Speedwagon Foundation, and she's a botanist who's going to investigate the land. Fumi then recounts the Gaga incident, in which a girl stripped off her clothes and started saying ga 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 ga. A farmer's truck arrived, but after it passed, the girl disappeared, leaving only her toes and a little bit of blood behind. The two begin their journey towards the orchard. They stop at the Higashikata fruit orchard. As Lucy inspects the estate, Fumi notices the remains of a bird on the ground. The driver then states that someone is calling him. The driver begins stripping off his clothes, repeating ga 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 over and over again. He comes to his senses, but then a farmer's truck drives by. Once it passes, the driver is gone. Fumi finds his clothes and his left hand lying on the ground. Lucy tells Fumi to go back to the car. She then mentions the Devil's Palm in North America. The land brought out latent powers of the human heart. Though it brought about new life in a manner of speaking, it led to misfortune. Lucy came to the Morio hunting grounds 30 years ago, noticing it was similar to the Devil's Palm. Lucy came specifically to find the Rokakaka. Fumi returns to the car as Lucy hears a cryptic voice guiding her to the guardrail. Her shirt gets caught in the guardrail. In fact, it seems to be eating her clothes.
Between the steel plates, Lucy sees severed fingers. Fumi watches on in horror as Lucy looks completely helpless. The guardrail is alive! Dead corpses reside within the guardrail as Lucy gets sucked inside. Fumi, however, manages to save her at the last second. The boy is shocked that the guardrail is sentient. Lucy compares the guardrail to an animal. Fumi carries her to the car, but the grotesque monster grabs onto her. Bring me with you! It's the driver! Lucy deduces that the guardrail is keeping him just barely alive. Fumi gets pulled in this time. His shirt is ripped off as Lucy notices the star birthmark on his shoulder. Fumi's face is pulled in as Lucy tells him to start the car's engine. He then summons thorn-covered vines to activate the car and drive it into the guardrail. Fumi unleashes his stand, throwing the guardrail into the field. The boy decides to carry Lucy away from the area. Fumi-kun, let me ask you one more time. I want to know your name. It's Joestar. My name is Joseph Joestar. My Japanese name is written Josephu, so I'm called Fumi-kun. My grandma Rina, who lived with me in S-City, gave me that name. She married an American named Johnny Joestar. That's why I have that sort of name. My grandma crossed the Atlantic Ocean by boat to deliver his friend's corpse, and the two of them got to know each other on that trip. My grandma's dead now, though. As Lucy reminisces about Johnny Joestar, she looks over into the orchard to see a cryptic person working amongst the trees. We as the readers know this as Toru, who looks exactly the same age as we saw him in the story. She then sees a bucket with the Rokakaka in it. That was... wait! Just there! That was... Joseph urges her to calm down as they run away. Run for your life! Lucy Steele, 65 years old, died due to a lung disease in New York, in her home country of America, 3 years after the Radio Gaga incident. After the incident, Joseph Joestar, 17, was concerned about Lucy Steele's health. So he traveled with her back to America. Unfortunately, because of America's entrance into World War II, he wasn't able to get back to S-City until the war ended. He henceforth worked as Lucy's assistant, and received an education and earned citizenship in New York. In 1952, he got to know a woman who worked at the Speedwagon Foundation, named Susie Q, with whom he married and had a child, and that child would turn out to be Holly Joestar. In 1993, the Higashikata fruit parlor was taken over by Norisuke, the fourth generation. As he built up the company, they eventually sported the second highest revenue for a fruit company in the nation. In 2010, they rebuilt their former main building that was built 250 years earlier to a modernist architectural design. And of course, the architect, Yotsuyu, was the one who designed it. Yasuo thinks of Holly Joestar as there's no longer any Rokakaka in Morio. Josuke also thinks of Rai and his sister. They might still exist, like in some land in the islands to the south. But here, there's no one left that can search for the other Rokakaka. A lady with a baby drops her phone on the ground. Yasuo helps her out, and she investigates her phone with Paisley Park, discovering that this woman is Josephumi's mother. Josuke recognizes her from the accounts from Karira. It doesn't seem like she recognized Josuke. My memories, my very first memories, they begin when I open my eyes under the soil of the walleyes. I'm not Josuphumi or Kira Yoshikage. I'm the one that came from the soil, Josuke. Because Yasuo used Paisley Park to investigate the phone, she found a lot of photos of Josuphumi inside, which means the mother never forgot him. It looks like she was looking for you all this time. As tears stream down Yasuo's face, they determine that the name Josuphumi is probably the name from a Geta maker. The two meet up with the Higashikatas outside the fruit parlor. Inside, they say that Norisuke is going to be discharged from the hospital tomorrow, so they want to celebrate. They can't decide what kind of cake to have, so they leave the decision to Josuke. Me? You want me to pick the cake? Josuke, just choose one. Pick one, Josuke! Yasuo looks to exit the shop with a tear in her eye, finally realizing that Josuke found his family. And that officially ends the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 8, JoJolion.